Hey guys, it's Brian up at the top of the app. I actually just want to make a quick formal announcement. As of last Friday, OSG started and is maintaining its community Discord. So if Blue Sky and Tumblr or whatever else aren't really your speed and you still kind of want to hang out with us, you can come do that. That stuff you can find like all over any of our profiles. It's actually not on the website yet, but it will be pretty soon. We've shuttered Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, and so we're really focused on the YouTube, Discord, and Blue Sky and Tumblr communities now. So yeah, coming out with us. Enjoy the show.
All systems nominal.
それでは早速全速前進
You wanna know what the weak point of a mech is? The fucking pilot.
Get away from her, you bitch!
His papers say he was a raven.
Protocol 3.
A pattern blue!
Welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants, a giant robot power hour discussing mechs across media, their stories, and why we love them. I'm Niko, and I'm joined by Alice.
As we speak, my ghost is whispering to me, you can buy tickets to the Sound of Freedom now.
And Brian.
I, too, am a victim of the divorce ponytail, and I think it's time we as a society start talking about that.
That's wild, because you just got married. Anyway, this time around, we're discussing the horror of living as a wifeless wife guy. Ghost in the Shell 2, Innocence. Let's launch into it.
This movie is diabolical.
That's a way to describe it. My first note for this entire movie, thank you for asking, is I stopped this movie to see if I accidentally owned a shitty updated version on accident. But no, it just looks like this.
Yeah, I had a question a little further down because apparently a 4K restoration of the movie was released like not too long ago. And I was like, did anybody get their hands on that? Because I fucking watched it on YouTube.
No, but I watched it on YouTube, yep.
Guess who got the 4K edition?
You got the 4K edition?
Yeah, boy.
Oh, thank God.
Did we all watch the dub or the sub?
I watched the fucking dub.
I watched the dub too. This dub whipped actually, so I wasn't mad about
dub, because we had some of our mainstays from SAC in it. We finally gotten our like cast all together. But sub's okay. But yeah, dub.
I did not enjoy the dub. That's really funny. I'm glad y'all also listened to it and to have a different perspective.
Did you not enjoy the voice acting of the dub or every piece of dialogue?
Okay, both. But also, how are you gonna motherfucking... We'll get into it. Okay, let's back up. Okay. Hey, everybody. Ghost in the Shell Innocence. Or Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, or as it was known only in Japan, just Innocence. Because they picked up on the subtext. They're like, yeah, this is Ghost in the Shell. This was produced in 2004 by Mamoru Oshii. It is 98 minutes long. This one hits a little different than Ghost in the Shell 1 from 1995. There's extensive use of 3D CG in this movie.
Mamoru, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say about you.
Yeah, this decision absolutely crippled this movie, I think.
I will say, possibly the funniest quote I found was that Oshii criticized Shrek for using only CGI.
Which is insane because Shrek looks so much better than this movie.
Is Shrek wearing the suit of armor a mech?
No.
Yeah.
That's just Shrek wearing
that's a
clothes.
suit of armor. Yeah.
It's clothes. It's not mechanized.
All right, okay.
Anyway, yeah, he criticized Shrek for using only CGI, but it is used extensively here, with many times only the characters hand-drawn as they move through 3D
and sometimes
CG.
not even that.
Yeah, that...
You see that floor over there? That's gonna be CG.
Yeah, alright, yeah. The shelling sequence of this movie is also entirely CG.
Yeah.
You see that cup full of sand with cigarette butts in it? Never guess. That's CG.
All right. So yeah, as mentioned, me and Brian both watched this on YouTube. Thank God for the brave heroes on YouTube uploading whole movies that just aren't available on any other fucking streaming service.
Honestly, this is very dire because this isn't like some series that nobody knows about. This is such a huge series, and there's just no legal way to stream this.
Counterpoint, Innocence is absolutely the stepchild of the franchise. Like, nobody liked this movie.
It was so funny because I sat down to watch it and I was like, I've never seen this one. I'm so excited. I really liked Ghost in the Shell. I'm so happy there's a second movie. And the anyway,
I actually will say, if we're just like talking big strokes, I actually liked this a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Mm-hmm.
But it has like glaring issues that I think that the first movie was like such a masterpiece that it's so weird to like stumble like this.
I think that's the same thing for me.
Of it, but yeah, its biggest failing is that this is the franchise it's attached to. Like when you're sitting next to Standalone Complex and the original, and you're this, it's like, well.
Yeah.
Anyway, do we have any other production facts about this? I would be interested to know if there's any information behind some of the like long decisions made.
Okay, I will say the funniest thing I found, because I don't have a ton of these, but Alice, you may have this one too. That script. Okay, that fucking script. Oshii is quoted as being like, I realized that adding quotes was a way to introduce other thinkers into the story, and it was like...
No, motherfucker, you realize that adding quotes meant that you had to write less.
It's so funny. It's so like a high school student quotes the whole paragraph instead of a sentence so that they have more words. It's rough. Anyway, Alice, what have you got for us? Yeah.
Hey.
Oh my god, yeah. That's so true.
Did so little research for this.
It's totally fine. No, I did some basic research. Of course, Mamoru Oshii has like written books and stuff, and I did not really grab those. But
from the books I've read of him, this isn't something that he talks about often, and I think that's the most damning thing. And anything he does talk about this, it's very much a damnation of CG. He's very clear about his thoughts on it, and while he did engage with the medium, I don't want to say this was production IG making him, but it feels like this is production IG making him use the cool new CG shit.
Yeah, there was another quote from him that was talking about like CG can be a tool in the artist's toolbox, like you combine it with other things, but it should never be the sole medium. Which is just really funny considering, like, you know, all of the blockbuster animated films lately, other than with very rare exceptions, are like pretty much all CG based. But
it's very interesting, especially with where anime is now. It is so it's just the industry standard that you have a CG group in your company because there are just things that are just easier, and they finally made it like blend well with anime instead of looking janky, but that took decades, and this is 2004.
I would say to this day the only time I've seen this look good is Chainsaw Man, and that's because they used a very specific technique, I feel like, which I don't even know counts as using CG and hand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I really keenly felt the my desire, because there are some interesting, very cool set pieces that we'll talk about. I keenly felt my desire for them to have put those together in CG and then rotoscoped at least, you know, but like they didn't. It's just the CG asset on screen. So
this fucking movie looks like Code Lyoko. Like,
yeah, it's not great. But Alice, so you watched the 4K restoration. So some critics have said that cleans up some of the muddiness of early CGI, but like, what was your impression?
There's only so much you can do, I feel like.
Yeah, what was your impression of it?
It's more visually consistent, is what I would say. It's not so much like you can very obviously tell what is the drawn portions and what isn't. What it does is it just makes it a cleaner viewing experience, and you're not so jarred. Like when the cars appear on scene, and we're going to talk about the cars, you're not
we have
like
regressed.
We're going to talk about it. You're not like, oh shit, this is fucking just in the middle of the frame and glaringly bright. They blend it in better with things, but that's really all it does. It doesn't fix the core issue of the CG.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to reanimate it. That makes sense.
This is relevant to the CG. This was actually in my, and then we can talk about the summary, which I'm sure is going to be very clear and concise because this movie is very clear and concise. I just this movie is the Metal Gear of the Ghost in the Shell franchise. And I mean that on so many levels. The way it's like pioneering a new technology to the point of schlock. The way that it's like lost up its own philosophical ass to the point where it's like, this is just absolutely nonsensical, actually. Yeah. So
the only thing it's missing are the bleeding heart liberals.
there's even a big shell infiltration sequence.
Yeah,
like Bato,
Bato goes on a sneaking mission. It must
with
be said.
synth music and everything.
But he uses a little trick where you just bring your gun and you don't OSP.
Yeah, has Snake considered just bringing your gun? Anyway, to get back on track, so this is the second feature film, obviously based on the Ghost in the Shell manga by Masamune Shiro. This installment apparently is based on the chapters Robot Rondo and has some other elements from Phantom Fund.
Loosely. Having read the manga, it is a boilerplate to make the story, and that is it.
That's interesting. I was wondering that because it's like, I know you've read it, but I was just like, oh, really? 2 chapters? Or really 1 chapter with, okay, interesting.
It's literally a concept from 1 chapter, basically.
Yeah, the manga can't have the horrible foot slapping little tea serving machine in it. That doesn't translate in manga.
But this is a direct sequel to the first film, following the Major's choice to abandon her body and live on the net, thus the wifelessness. So, all right, what did y'all know about this movie before we watched it? Because as I said, I watched it just for this show. This is my first time encountering it, but have y'all encountered it before?
I've watched this in the past. I watched this once in the past. I watched this once when I watched the first movie when I was much younger, but when I was older, I found this and I went and watched it because I was like, oh, hell yeah, I love Ghost in the Shell.
More Ghost in the Shell.
And then, and that was it. That's my history. I watched this back in the 2000s and never engaged again.
Yeah, I have the similar experience. I would say I was also pretty young when I think I was like for some reason aware of this movie coming out or something. And I don't remember exactly how I watched it, but I watched it pretty quickly because I was still pretty young. And I remember being like, oh, the Major isn't in this fucking movie at all. This sucks. And that was like my main issue with it because I was just like, I was in it for the Major. I would say that I have a much bigger appreciation for it now. I actually really like the idea of having an installment where the Major features very little. I actually do really like Bato as a character, generally.
We as people have all grown to enjoy Metal Gear Solid 2 as much as we enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, obviously, like, we've already kind of gotten to, like, there's other glaring things going on that I was just like, oh my God. But yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, this was my first encounter with it, to the point, and it's so funny because the first sequence in this movie, once you get past like some text, is CG. I had looked it up on YouTube and that started, and I'm like, well, this doesn't look right. And so I went and found a different version, and I was like, oh no.
I was like, are we sure? We were sure.
I think that was the initial reaction coming to that in 2024 because we're so used to the like mid-2000s, we've updated this and added new CGI scenes, and it's like, no, we didn't need to do this, but this is just it. Animatrix ass movie.
Yeah. So what happens?
Yeah, with that said, let me concisely summarize the events of Ghost in the Shell Innocence. All right. As mentioned, Innocence finds Bato majorless, continuing to work in Section 9 with Togusa and his less cybernetically modified coworker, which did make me laugh later when he gets brain hacked. I'm like, why do you gotta whatever, Togusa. Anyway, Togusa is his new partner. The chief puts them on the case of a series of high-profile murders committed by gynoids, feminine personal robots customized for sex, and touting a more appealing personality due to some special quality imbued in them by their manufacturer, Locus Solus. After Bato personally destroys a unit, Forensic turns up evidence of illegal ghosts in the gynoids, as well as a data file, a voice saying, "Please save us." Chasing leads on the case takes Bato and Togusa to another brutal crime scene, a confrontation with Yakuza, and a subsequent brain-hacking incident that casts doubt on Bato's humanity, as well as into a nationless urban sprawl to confront an ex-military hacker, Kim. Kim attempts a brain hack to trap the two in a surreal time loop set in his creepy manor house, but is thwarted by Bato. After waxing philosophical about dolls, he reveals Locus Solus has a headquarters on a boat in international waters. Bato infiltrates the base physically while Togusa attempts to access its systems through Kim's brain. When all the gynoid units on board are activated with lethal combat protocols, the Major possesses one through the net and aids Bato in fighting his way towards seizing the ship's systems and making a rescue that reveals the origin of Locus Solus's illegal ghosts. The Major then departs again, promising Bato she will always be with him in the net.
I'll always be with you in the net.
Literally, if you are on Blue Sky, we will always be with you.
We're only right there next to you.
All right,
yeah,
with
that is actually what happened.
That is what happened. And with that, we're going to go to the break. Hey, Niko here in the break. Just wanted to let you know that while this is a podcast, and we'll always do our best to describe visuals we're commenting on, we'll also include links to the mechs and images we discuss in the show notes, and post actual photos on our show website. Along with that, make sure to check the show notes for content warnings as appropriate to the episode. That's all for now. Back to the show.
The birds are fucking back! Let's go!
The birds have rarely been more back than they are in this movie. So I broke this up into 3 general sections. The initial investigation, Bato going the fuck off, and the final conflict. But let's dive into the initial stuff. I will say, so it starts with some text, which is always really funny to me. Whenever a movie starts with like 5 paragraphs of text, I'm always like, okay, so you either didn't have time to animate a scene of the characters giving us this information, you didn't trust us to get this information from a scene, or you are like, I need to offload a bunch of information right off the bat because I'm about to put a ton of different information in the movie. And I think all 3 kind of apply here.
I could agree. I also just at the top, like one of the first things you see, a lot of the visual language around like technology and interfacing is totally different in this movie compared to the first one. We're in this like weird dildo helicopter flying through a fucking sepia.
Okay, first thing I yelled was, "Oh shit, it's a sex toy helicopter."
It's insane. It's like, this looks nothing like Ghost in the Shell to me when I first, the first literally 10 seconds, I was like, is this the right thing? Like, I think we already talked about that. Like, we both had to double check. So like all that stuff looks completely different. A lot of it looks like weirdly mystical a lot of the time. And that didn't hit for me.
Yeah. It was a weird way to open the movie. I think the stronger opening is Bato's cool and scary fight with the gynoid.
Yeah.
So I presume, if I'm remembering correctly, that whole weird like hacking in cyberspace scene kind of energy was kind of setting up the fact that the gynoid was like on the rampage. So
yeah, it dovetails with Bato getting there. So
yeah, so Bato does have a fight with a gynoid that's already killed both her owner and 2 cops. Yeah, Alice?
Hey guys, I love Cyberpunk 2077 and Max Tack.
Yeah, I will say it's very funny. This movie is a challenging film, I think, but it is very funny the extent to which I kept seeing like visual motifs and ideas that I'm like, oh, they lifted that like wholesale for Cyberpunk 2077.
This entire sequence is wholesale from that.
I think while this movie is a lot less beloved than a lot of the other stuff in the franchise, Standalone Complex does take a lot of ideas from this, I think, which is interesting because, and this is like the one thing is like, this movie is chock full of really fucking great ideas. It just looks like shit. And like a lot of the, like, it totally kneecaps itself at every turn. But I do want to say, talking about the mechs of all of this, the gynoids are incredible. Like they're really creepy. They have like scary panels that like fly open when they get shot. It's like, they look very cool.
Yeah, and the whole fight, like the way she moves is fucked up, and we'll see more of this later. The way that they specifically animated the gynoids moving is really wild.
Yeah.
And, you know, Bato, of course, is just packing heat, and so he's just blowing her to pieces. But there's a moment as she's fighting him that her chest, like you said, bursts open.
She like rips her tits off and her chest pops open. Yeah.
You see the internals, and then her face also opens, and it's like the one thing that I really liked the look of around 2017's Ghost in the Shell were the geisha with the faces that open that had been created by Weta Workshop, and I'm like, oh, that's just here. Like, that's just here. This was here. But yeah, it's an incredible sequence of her being executed, especially because the whole time in the background, you're hearing like, I think actually the quote was, "Please help us" or something. You're hearing that repeated over and over and over. Like, it's creepy. It's atmospheric. It's really cool.
And also to be clear, these gynoids are like full on human sized ball jointed dolls. Which is something I find deeply visually uncomfortable. And so like, it's a very interesting thing that this movie is going to come back to a lot.
Yeah, that was a specific reference to Hans Belmer. So that was something, Mamoru Oshii went to, I believe, a museum of this guy's art. He made a lot of like erotic art, and especially like erotic, like ball jointed doll looking art. And some of it is literally featured in this movie. Like the
I literally started sweating as soon as I started looking at this. Woo!
I'm very sorry about what I'm going to do to you in the game later. I'm very sorry. But literally one of his drawings is featured in this film on the cover of like a book about dolls. So yeah, that the look here is so specific, especially like the entire torso is built on this orb in the way that is very specifically a reference to this guy's art, but is also like so distinctive from, I think, any other imagining of how to construct androids I've seen since. Like, I've often seen androids constructed or having doll-like features, but this specific, like, circular base for the torso is so, it's freaky. It like evokes pregnancy, but obviously it's just how the torso is articulated, and like, ugh, it's wild.
Are you saying this isn't a reference to popular HoloLive VTuber Cecilia Emmergreen, who is also a ball joint doll? I thought that's what this was.
Yeah, they were
a
definitely
reference.
doing that in 2004. I think that's probably what it was.
Took, not Masamune Shiro. Mamoru Oshii took ayahuasca and teleported to the future and saw her. And was like, I gotta make a whole movie.
I did want to talk about, in this intro sequence, just before we get too far, I want to talk about the mech of it all, which is, there's a series called Appleseed. Do either of you know about it?
I have heard about Appleseed, yep.
Appleseed-ass looking movie. That's when we're gonna have to touch on Appleseed because it is in the mecha space, and it's, but this has the exact same vibe where you're just like, oh, that's also CGI. Oh, that too, because you're like, did that pack of cigarettes need to be CGI? Boy, howdy it did.
Yeah, guys, you could have drawn this still frame of Bato's face. You could have drawn that.
That was so wild. Oh my god! But yeah, we'll get
it's so
into
wild
it.
when they move, and you realize it's CGI, especially in the upscale version where it's like, oh shit, why was that CG?
And speaking of why the fuck was this CG, it's time to we have shelling sequence at home. It's time to have Temu shelling sequence.
Wish.com shelling sequence. So yeah, it's we're fully birthed. Like there's actual insemination imagery like also in this intro. So like it's just got everything. Guy, it's there. It's weirdly piss colored. I don't want to talk about
There's
it.
a Yuri kiss at the end.
It's completely CG, and I do feel like that is such a downgrade from the way that the shelling sequence is hand animated, and like especially like one of the things that Mamoru Oshii like has on his side is like the specific way that like organic bodies are animated. There's a scene at the very end of this movie where Bato is just like putting a person over his shoulders, and I was just like breathless the way that was hand animated, and I was just like, and they put all that energy into like that and like not the shelling sequence. Not like I said, there were so many moments where I was like, I wish you'd at least rotoscoped this, like at least drawn over the CG. And the shelling sequence especially is one of those sequences. I don't hold against it that this movie has more sexual themes going on, because I think like the idea of like, what do we use robots for? I think that this always comes up in conversation. I'm also glad it's kind of part of the same conversation as like robotic pets and companions.
Well,
I think
and like
that's interesting.
it's, you know, this concept is implicit in the concepts of the first movie in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it makes sense to say, okay, well, this is something that we should also be curious about, like when we're talking about this world. And I think I don't think that it fumbles the bag as badly as I would have assumed a 2004 anime about sex trafficking would fumble the bag. Although again, it seems to not be really the focus as much as like the quotes.
Yeah.
So I want to talk, I think the shelling sequence is when we can talk about this, because I want to talk about my main problem with this movie, which is it is trying constantly to cash in on the goodwill of the original series. The original movie. It constantly is trying to re-evoke what that movie evoked in us the first time. So like all of the
so true.
Philosophy thrown in, all these conversations, all these weird scenes. This especially, it's like, oh, we have to have a shelling sequence for the gynoids because people fucking loved the shelling sequence and we're going to do it again. And it just keeps trying to bring back things from the original and make you go, guys, do you remember when we did this? And it's breathless how this movie tries to distance itself from the major, because that's what it has to do, because it exists in a post-major world and it cannot lose that grip. In fact, so much so that by the end of the movie, we're back to just the major plot line. Like, we get it. We couldn't survive without her.
Yeah, and like you're totally right. I hadn't thought about that actually for most of the movie, but then there's a particularly heinous like visual repetition that particularly concerns the major and the things that she does. That I was like, oh, okay, she's here for 5 minutes and we have to have her do that. Like it felt so like Marvel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I will say we keep alluding to the fact that like there are a lot of quotations in this.
Sure are.
I will say there are a lot of quotations in this, and almost more heinous. It's like weirdly like every character and every side character and everyone immediately knows the quote, its source, its context, its cultural significance. Everybody has like a retort backed up. Everybody's like, oh, well, that guy was actually talking about this. It's like, it's almost like the movie's calling you stupid because you didn't recognize that quote from Milton or whatever the fuck.
What I desperately want is the scene where one of them is live recording what the person is saying and Google searching it at that exact moment in their cyberbrain and looking up another quote to spit back where it's like, Bato's like, oh yeah, Psalm 13:9 of the Old Testament. And it's like, motherfucker, you just Googled that with your brain.
I know, it's so funny. It's so funny. On Wikipedia, they list other numerous quotations in the film come from Buddha, Confucius, Descartes, the Old Testament, Meiji-era critic Saiko Ryuku, Richard Dawkins, Max Weber, Jacob Grimm, Plato, John Milton, 14th century playwright Xiami Motokiyo, the Tridentine Mass, and Julian Offray de la Mettrie.
You can absolutely tell. One of the production facts about this movie is that apparently, this is the only quote I know, is that Mamoru Oshii traveled to get inspiration. He eat, pray, loved. Like, he just took a quote from, like, every country and, like, put it in his fucking, like...
Ghost shall love.
Ghost shall love.
It's somebody. So his quote about this fucking, he credits Jean-Luc Godard for the idea of including quotes by other authors in his movie, and said basically the texts give a certain richness to cinema because the visual is not all there is. Thanks to Godard, the spectator can concoct his own interpretation. The image associated with the text is a unifying act that aims at renewing cinema. Let's take it to new dimensions.
What are you talking about? Your Pat Labor 2 fucking boat scene lives in everybody's head rent-free, and that was original material. It wasn't just characters barfing fucking Milton in front of a fucking CG polygon. What are you talking about, dude?
This is why I don't fucking trust him about the birds. You know what I mean? I don't trust you. You are not an authority on your own text.
So, also, if it sounds like we're jumping around a lot, unfortunately, like, this movie doesn't really follow from one event to the next very well.
Yeah, I tried to condense it, but it's, yeah.
There's a lot of for all, like 10 to 15 straight minutes, he'll be like, why is this happening? And then if you listen very carefully, there'll be one line later on that explains to you why that happened. But that's it. Why did we just shoot up a room full of people? Why did we just kill like 98 people with absolutely no fucking warrant or anything?
That is so fucking wild.
It's crazy.
But to lay the groundwork for why Bato goes the fuck off, absolutely. Alice, did you have something on that?
No, but I wanted to, now's the time I want to introduce the bit that I'm going to do for this episode.
Okay.
Oh, good. And thank you for letting us know.
Thank you. Well, this is for the listeners because it's going to feel janky, but I've pulled up the list of quotes that they have in this movie, and I will be peppering them in as my responses throughout this entire episode with
I've also replaced myself with a 3D model.
Okay.
So this episode, you can't see because this is an audio medium, but I have been replaced by a 3D model.
When a donkey goes...
And it's not good looking.
When a donkey goes on a journey, doesn't come back as a horse.
May a man walk tall and live without many sin. What the fuck is the...
Shut the fuck up. Anyway, Bato, post the major, is living a bachelor lifestyle. He got a dog, so at least he's taking care of something, but...
When I was little, I had a needy female basset hound as well. This touched me in so many... I love this dog. This dog is... The care and love that went into animating this dog over like anything else in the movie.
I'm actually so happy that the dog.
I'm so happy about it.
The dog is rarely, not completely, but very rarely CGI. It is usually a hand-drawn dog. All of the hand-drawing budget went into Bato's dog.
Which I don't. Do we ever know her name?
I don't think so.
I don't think we ever hear her name.
But yeah, so he's living on his own, but with the dog, and it's clear that like my man has depression or something.
Gabriel.
Yeah, like he has a new partner,
like the archangel Gabriel. Do you guys get it? Do you get the metaphors in this movie?
Yeah.
He has a new partner, and we see more of Ishikawa in this, and his new partner is Togusa, who is of course the ex-cop that the major poached in the first movie.
I have a dub correspondence thing to say here, which is that Togusa in Ghost in the Shell 1 is dubbed, and his name is Christopher Joyce, and he's not that. Christopher Joyce is like a background guy and a bunch of other stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, from Innocence onward, Togusa will be voiced by Crispin Freeman, who is an actual anime that guy. He is in fucking everything. But I think he's doing a good job here. I think that Togusa is very like plain, and Crispin Freeman can do a lot of different voices and a lot of different affectations. And I think he made the conscious choice to just talk in this, and I think that's a really good choice for Togusa.
Yeah, this was my struggle with the dub, is that like... Obviously, with the dub, you're trying to match the animation to a certain extent. There's a certain pace you have to deliver lines at. You have to try to match the mouth movements to an extent.
Well, and the mouth movements look like shit in this movie because everything's CG. So that's like going to be...
But also, this is such a dense script. I really hated this dub because it felt like nobody got to do any voice acting. They had to deliver words as fast as possible. Like there's sections of the dub where somebody will have like 3 separate thoughts, including one that's maybe like an interrogative, and there's like no inflection change because they're just trying to get through the dialogue and they're going fast as hell. And that also made some of the quotes just like really bizarre because like people when they talk and they change tones usually pause, and there's like not really a moment to pause. And so they'll go straight from like, hey man, what'd you think about that? I think that blah, 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 blah. And they'll just deliver it completely flat the whole way through. And it was driving me nuts. It sounded so bad. I'm
so undiscerning. I didn't actually really notice. I mean, I know what I did notice was that, yeah, like, the dialogue is like extremely crowded. I would be interested to watch the sub. I feel like that problem may have actually been worse in Japanese, just because of the way.
I'm interested to see it.
Yeah,
the only advantage I could think is like at least maybe they could deliver the lines and the animation studio would try to match it to them, so maybe they could have more natural pacing.
There definitely is that.
I really struggled with this.
It totally depends. Unfortunately, I mean, I think hopefully well, we'll see. I don't know if you even plan on watching anything else dubbed, but I think I'm going to watch the dub going forward. But yeah.
Because Standalone Complex has episodes, I may switch back and forth just to see it, but like a lot of the reason I watch things in the original language is because I want to hear the original actor's inflection. And like, yeah, I was really struggling with this one, but especially in the Gynoid morgue scene, the morgue worker that they talk to, like, I think the actress did the best she could.
Whoa. We can't talk about that yet.
Okay.
Hold up.
Okay.
First of all, I cannot believe you didn't know her name. I fully expected you to lose your mind over this character.
I mean, she's just the lady from iRobot.
Oh, wow. This really... Okay, no, go on.
She's Susan Calvin. Like, I mean, I like her, okay. Anyway, Alice, you've been, like, raising your hand.
How many are the sum total of their thoughts? If I count them, they are more numerous than sand.
Never mind. I'm never going to throw to you again this episode. You can just sit in your corner with your book of quotes. But, yeah, no. So a thing that we explore initially is that, like, Bato is not doing well, and his coworkers are, like, driving him home and, like, obviously spending time with him. Togus is working the case with him. Like, they're kind of keeping an eye on him, but I don't think it's in this initial scene. I actually think it's something that the chief says later, but the chief specifically observes that he's acting like the major did before she disappeared into the net. Like, he is, and that phrasing actually specifically reminded me of, like, when people will talk about, like, I knew someone who committed suicide and they'll see somebody else who is acting sort of the way that they recognized their friend before that happened. Like, that's what that evoked for me, is the idea that somebody has seen somebody go all the way down before and is like, he's going down, you need to pull him out. Like,
walk in solitude, do no evil, seek less, like an elephant in a forest. If your friend is exhibiting these signs, they might be considering folding into the net.
Yeah, they might be considering folding into the net, which is not something we can do at this point, so maybe hang out with them. Like, maybe spend some time with them.
It would be cool if Ishikawa and Tokuso would, like, do nice and supportive things for Bato instead of, like, trailing him and interrogating him and following him around.
Unfortunately, not only are these guys, these are male cops.
These are dudes, bros, and also Section 9 are, like, they are all just, like, generally terrible people, and it's hilarious.
Okay, can we talk about... So... Let's just be honest. This is no longer the cyberpunk that we were in. We are now in a film noir that is about
It's fucking bizarre.
It's so strange.
This movie is so loud about how there's no female character. That's what I want to get at. It is so loud.
Yeah.
I think that's what made the morgue attendant stand out more to you. I think I legitimately think my appreciation of her as a character, I believe her name's Haraway.
Her name's Haraway. This was like her whole thing is like my favorite part of the movie. This was like the peak of the movie to me.
But I was distracted by the fact that I think the actress did the best job she could, but it was a very flat performance because she was having to say so much so quickly. Thankfully, she was helped throughout that scene. Like, there were cutaways where she could just deliver lines without having to sync with the facial animation. But like, yeah. But
See,
yeah. So
I don't know. I guess I'm just reading that less as they're trying to get to the script and more like, because anime has this problem in general, and so maybe I'm just desensitized to it. But like this, it happens a lot, and unfortunately, like the cadence, like people don't like misspeak and like have to like start over or something in anime, and so like a lot of the times when the sentences are longer, it can kind of just sound like, well, this sounds weird because you just said a bunch of incredibly long words very perfectly.
My problem with this scene is, in the way that this whole movie, no one talks like a human, and I don't want to get into CinemaSins territory, but they go into this office, she says, I'm not going to help you, and then she begins to talk about how a doll can have life in it, just yelling at these dudes. It's wild. What I do love from this scene, though, is those viewers at home might notice that the computer she's sitting in front of is entirely CGI, but because of this, the text readouts on it are all inputted text. Now, one of them just is a list of like fake names that they came up with, but there is one screen right behind her, and if you pause at any moment, it is giving different notes about the modeling work that was done on the movie. So here's a screenshot showing it being like, thanks to this guy for doing the model for this scene and chapter. And that's it. But also, working in a high-tech lab, smoking Winston-Salems, and using a plastic cup filled with sand for your cigarette butts is such a mood.
She's so powerful to me.
It's so hot.
I like love all the stuff she's saying.
I do like her. She's an interesting character, especially because like I will say one of the better pieces of animation in this movie comes right before the morgue scene when Togusa and Bato show up and they're taking the case off the hands of like the local cops because they specifically they need to check in at the morgue, they need to get information on these units. When they do this, the local cop who they confront, who like Togusa's like, damn, just like me for real. He kicks a trash can in frustration after they leave. That is the most lovingly animated, like, trash can kick, hand animated, like, it's incredible. It's so funny to me. And then we go from that into the scene where, like, most of the exploration of the Gynoids' bodies is CG. Most of the scene is CG, and then at one point, Bato's fucking face is CG. They render the characters in CG, and it just like it's not good.
They're doing the weird Pat Lieber 2 thing too, where he's looking at a bowed reflective surface, and so they did like a fisheye effect on him, but he's CG. It just looks it's all the things that we love about Mamoru Oshii's filmmaking, but because it like looks like shit because of CG, it's just awful. It's like it's so weird how easy it can turn on you.
Yeah, it's rough. But I did like Alice, are you gonna offer an insight or a quote?
No, I want to talk about what she talks about in this fucking scene.
Yeah, these are great.
I'm sorry that you have fostered an atmosphere of distrust.
I've only dropped 2 of them so far. So the thesis that this movie, I see this scene as the boat scene of this movie because it lays out its thesis, which is, humans discard their robots, but they never check if the robots want to be discarded. And maybe robots don't want to be discarded anymore. But also we learn that these are illegally modified sex robots, which is pretty neat. By the way, I love that they call them sexroids.
Sexroids. It's so fucking weird.
And we get into this discussion about, you play with dolls, you imbue them with life. It's Brian brought up before, but the plank of it all, right? You can have a piece of wood, put a face on it, and call it a name, and people will imbue it with, personality. And yes, we do that with robots too, and in this universe we do, but at the end of the day, when the new model comes out, you kind of just eventually retire your model. But also, Togusa says, I have one more question, and she answers, no, I don't have any kids. And I'm not a miss, a mister, a missus, or a miss.
Yeah, dude. And then her fucking face pops open and she has little science binoculars that she starts looking at shit with. It fucking rules. She whips ass. No, I want to talk about what she actually is talking about here, which is that she makes the art. Well, I just want I think You mentioned the quote where she says, "No, I don't have any kids." But the reason that hits is because the core of her argument is that, yes, robots are different from you as a person, but children are also different from adults in the same way. She actually says to Togusa, and it pisses him off, and I think this is actually a really good moment for both of them, but she says, perhaps playing with dolls is actually quite close to the same thing as raising children. It's not that we're socializing... This is just her argument, right? It's not that we're socializing female children to train themselves for motherhood. It's that perhaps the fact that children are not fully developed yet makes them an in-between for her argument that these robots at least, have a will and have wants and desires.
That's so much of this movie, right? It's like there's clearly artistry happening here, but it's undercut by other shit that's happening.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a quote to say now. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
I
please.
do, but something that this movie gets at, and I think it's interesting because it comes at it through the lens of dolls, puppets, children, different things like that. But one of the things it's getting at is that people want sexual service from these gynoids. They don't want to acknowledge that they're human. And it kept making me think of, I just recently reread the short story collection Burning Chrome by William Gibson, who's like an icon of the cyberpunk genre. And in the short story Burning Chrome, one of the things that they do is they take down this specific type of sex work ring that is in there. And there's a quote that they say that Gibson writes in the story, which is, "The customers are torn between needing someone and wanting to be alone at the same time, which has probably always been the name of that particular game, even before we had the neuroelectronics to enable them to have it both ways." And I was thinking about that a lot in this movie because it's like, they want a doll they can fuck, but they also want it to be lifelike. These guys are not willing to settle for, like, the guys now who buy, like, just latex full-size human dolls, but they don't do anything, right? They want a lifelike appearance, and they don't care what it costs to get that greater sense of verisimilitude. But if they actually wanted to sleep with a human women still exist. You wouldn't guess it from this movie, except in this scene, but, like, human women do still exist. But also human women don't allow you to be alone while you use them. They are another person. And so I do think it's interesting that it's interrogating some of those similar themes of, like, why people go to sex workers, and also, like, why sex workers are treated disposably in our society.
Descartes doted on a doll that looked exactly like his beloved daughter, who died at the age of 5, naming her Francine.
Thank you, Alice. I was just about to bring this up. That is true. I did not know this.
Real quick. Descartes.
Oh, is that what she said?
How do you pronounce it?
Descartes.
He's fucking French. Why are you defending him?
Anyway, yeah, no,
that happened.
Doll guy,
and apparently, he like went traveling on a ship, and they found the doll and thought it was creepy and weird and threw it overboard. And that was like, this is an anecdote. This is something I read on the internet. To be clear to the audience, like if somebody's like, that's not true, like, it's fine, don't worry about it. But what I read is they threw the doll overboard, and that is what drove Descartes to file like he didn't commit suicide, but he like died just kind of like wasting away. And that is what led him to do that. That is fucking crazy. What?
Can you imagine if it was just like so this is a weird anecdote. So there's a town called Boaz in Alabama. And in Boaz, they receive the lost
Boaz
luggage.
These nuts.
The lost luggage. They receive a share of lost luggage from the Atlanta International Airport. And as everyone knows, you can't go to hell without going through Atlanta. There's such a huge volume of travelers. But one of the things that they had forever was one of the original puppets from, I think it was the Dark Crystal. It had just been in a suitcase, and when they opened the suitcase to sell the contents of the suitcase, they just found this puppet in there.
That's
and I'm
insane.
Like, can you imagine if at some point in the future we're like sweeping the ocean floor and somebody finds a suitcase and is like, wow, what historical artifacts are going to be in here? And they open it and it's Descartes' creepy doll.
Bro, I just looked at this screenshot Alice posted. They did Togusa so dirty. Who is that? What is going on?
It's not good. Anyway, I another reason I like the morgue scene, it must be said, critics commented that like the original Ghost in the Shell was really cool toned. Both movies have a lot of sequences where it's kind of darker at night, but like the first movie had a lot of cool tones, and this movie has a lot more like reddish, orangish, neon tones in it. But like the gynoid morgue scene stands out so much because it is so blaringly white.
It's like blinding white.
I really like, and like Tokusa the whole time has his coat pulled up and he's clearly cold. That room is clearly refrigerated.
I love that detail because they're both cyborgs. They don't give a shit, but he is like breathing. He's like, you can see his breath and he has his coat bundled up over himself.
Again, there's all these little cool details and then they're just like buried in the mud here. But like, so they get that information. The key piece of information, as Brian mentioned, that they get is that in the androids, well, first of all, there's illegal ghosts in these units. But in the Gynoid sound buffer, which I kind of laughed, because there's a book series I love where the use of things that are just in the sound buffer is a frequent element of it. But in the sound buffer is that snippet that's like, please help us, that we heard during the Gynoid fight that Bato has at the beginning of the movie, but it's implied that like Bato wasn't hearing that was happening internally. And like this echo is like what was recovered. And so that's a very creepy sequence. I do love that. But it leads to them like meeting with the chief again, and he rejuggles some of their priorities, but he keeps them on the case. Specifically, he assigns them to take a look at a crime scene at a man named Walkson's house. What is his fucking first name? It's like John Walkson.
It's like John or Jack or something. This is a great Ishikawa scene. I love Ishikawa. I'm so glad he gets more to do in this movie.
He has a really cool scene later, but it's good here.
I love them doing this and like they're kind of poking around and they hear the other investigators come in and Ishikawa says, "We're not touching anything," as he puts a gun he picked up back on the shelf.
No gloves, he's just handling that gun. It's so funny. There's a lot of like cop dynamic stuff happening here when they like get in after the body has been removed to the coroner's office, but before the other crime scene techs get in, and so they're briefly looking at it. This is another thing where it's like, this sequence of investigation is interesting because the body here was like absolutely fucking destroyed, like the way that it was taken apart, but then the organs were also neatly removed and put in jars in the fridge. Like it's going full serial killer mode, but like it doesn't look like a gynoid attack. It's really confusing. Later they attribute it to the Yakuza, but like one of the things that Bato finds in this house that ends up being key later is he finds a hollow photograph of a young girl. And he finds it in the shittiest animated bookcase you've ever seen in your fucking life. I was so upset. It looks so fucking bad because it's just CG books that are identical. And later
and then there's
on,
one that's
at
the Death
mansion,
Note. He walks by, and they're all identical, and then there's one that's clearly on a different animation cell, and it's just the Death Note. It's like a black little shitty, like, it looks so bad.
And he pulls it out, and this is the thing that has the ball-jointed doll art on the front. It's a book on dolls. And when he opens it, it has the hollow photograph in it. But, like, this drove me nuts later because when they're in the manor house, they end up in a library, but the background of the library is hand-painted, so all the books look different, and it's completely flat. It doesn't move. And it looks 1,000,000% better than this shit does right here. But yeah, so they do their investigation and they tie this situation to the Yakuza because apparently one of the Yakuza higher-ups, was killed by his gynoid, and it looks like that this guy who was affiliated with Locus Solus has been thrown under the bus to the Yakuza.
Brian?
I wanted to mention that right after the morgue scene, they get in the car and Bato says of Haraway, she seems like she would fill out the comments section on a forum.
And then he reveals that he used to. Which
is such a different poster. I want us to think about how that is such a different own in 2004 than it is in 2025.
It really is. It's so funny.
And then also, just as a mech point, because this was considered in my rating, when they leave the crime scene and the investigators come in, one of the investigators has crazy, unblinking, like, camera eyeballs and a SATA cable going up his shoulder into the back of his neck. He looks awesome. I want a show about that man in particular.
It's so fucking cool.
A spring day, the other world and this world. And the chariot. We can go to the next scene.
No, I'm just gonna open. Every time you do this, I'm just gonna open my copy of Burning Chrome and just read a sentence. It's like a cultural anecdote, or antidote rather, not an anecdote. Anyway, but yeah, so this ties them to the Yakuza. Alice, you talked about cyberpunk noir. Yeah, one thing that's really, really glaring in this movie. So in the first movie, we saw cars from the future. Like,
yes,
famously, we chased a cyber garbage truck. And like Togusa has like a hot rod, and like the old throwback cars are present because like that's what the diplomats drive when they arrive at Section 9, and like Togusa clocks them as weighing the wrong amount. Like they have old fashioned looking cars, but like modern looking cars were mixed in. Now everyone is driving cars from like the 30s, the 20s, and the 40s. Like it is.
Everyone is driving cars. You only drive cars at night. Every street lamp is piss yellow. It's so strange.
Yeah, it's weird. One thing that I detest about this movie is that, like, I don't believe we're in reality anymore. Like, the original one is like detached reality. We're in mega Tokyo. It's kind of Shanghai light. You know, it's sprawling. There's people everywhere. But in this one, it's like, this is a universe in which we go to a police station where there's a guy on a unicycle and they're having this like fucking RoboCop-ass police station scene. And then also, here is the giant mega city made out of pipes. And also 5 gajillion people live here. But also we can't make dogs real anymore, so they're genetically modified. And the universe seems so unreal in this, especially as we get to the Yakuza scene. It is such a difference in the how it treats life, I guess is a nice way to put it.
I think this movie is way too surreal for its own good in a lot of ways. Yeah. This Yakuza scene is so nothing, but also it's kind of cool because there's cool action.
The one thing I want to talk about is the scene as Bato is, first off, M249 Para, one of the greatest machine guns ever made. I love this. It makes me so erotic every time this happens.
This is the machine gun, by the way, for the listeners, this is the machine gun where you have the big bullet belt and you like tuck it over the thing.
Yeah, there's only one of those, listeners. That's right. Brian knows there's only one.
This is the only one. But no, what just to give I just wanted people to know what sequence made Alice the horniest.
Oh. Yeah, put it on the box.
Yeah,
but they have a conversation from the point of view of the truck, in which it's like, I'm just gonna go talk to him. I'm just gonna go talk to the Yakuza. And he's like, you're just gonna go talk, right? You're getting a very big gun. And he's like, well, you don't go to the Yakuza without a big gun, but I'm just gonna try and talk to him. And he's like, you have to promise me you're not just gonna start killing them. Listeners.
Yeah, this is weirdly a comedy beat. It's like a really strong comedy beat.
This movie is a comedy.
Because,
I argue this movie is a comedy.
He just like whips out this machine gun and like he says like one thing and just anyway, I started blasted.
Yeah, they do talk to them very briefly, but the moment that the Yakuza understandably like makes a threat display, not even like completely drawing guns, the moment that they look potentially hostile, he starts blowing them away. This guy is a fucking American trained.
Well, it's another one where this movie is trying desperately to be an American noir. Like, he has the machine gun underneath a jacket, like it's a Tommy gun. Mm-hmm. But also,
yeah.
Hey, what scenes should we hand animate? How about all the Yakuza sitting around a table and we'll hold on that still scene for like a little too long? But yeah, he just starts laying waste to these people. And Togusa is there like, I'm just a guy. And he kills conservatively 500 Yakuza in this scene.
Like, this is the most Cyberpunk 2077 shit ever. There's even a cyber psycho with like a weird scissor arm that he has to fight.
Yeah. That's why I started laughing. There's so many elements. There's visual elements, but also just the idea of cyber psychosis. I think cyber psychosis predates this in the sense that it's in things like the original Cyberpunk 2020 rule set and stuff. But like the idea that the more you mod yourself, the crazier you get is here. Like, it's just, yeah.
There's also the most Metal Gear sequence of all time here where Bato gives someone who's just pissed themselves a lecture on firearms control while disassembling a handgun in front of them. So
this is so funny. Okay, because there's you want to talk about a jarring shift in tone. So Bato wastes like 50 guys, and Togusa meanwhile is like, I'm still in a crime thriller, so I have my revolver. I'm gonna shoot maybe one guy, and then I'm gonna approach a darkened stairway. Like, I need to be tactical after Bato just fucking annihilated the entire first story of this establishment. And then they move into, like, tactical heading up the stairs, and Bato, like...
Togusa says, I have to go first. I can't see past your big-ass body to cover you. Who the fuck needs to cover Bato?
Well, no, so this is here... I'll tell you what... I mean, okay, so this is here... It's here, because the movies paced like shit and they really needed to have something actually happen. And it's also here because they need to establish that Bato is the guy that sits there and, like, does the Meryl holding off the frogs at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4 thing, while the other person goes and does the important cyber noir shit. And... this is one of those scenes that's literally tied to the plot by like 2 sentences later on, because again, this is like 8 minutes too long for no reason.
Two grenades come down the stairs. Togusa sees his wife flash before his eyes. This is a really
cool... Yeah, this is a really cool sequence, because one thing that, like you said, in the trunk scene, Togusa puts emphasis on the fact that he is a family man. He has a life outside.
What does he have to do tonight?
Bato, it's his daughter's birthday, isn't it?
It's his daughter's birthday, yeah.
It's fucking bizarre, but, like, he emphasizes the fact that, like, he has a life outside of Section 9 in a way that Bato doesn't, so the stakes for him are higher. Like, if he is injured or killed, like, there are people who are going to be affected by that in a way that, like, if Bato self-destructs, it'll affect Section 9, but it really won't affect anyone else because the Major's gone. Well, yeah, his dog is like his only tether to the real world. But yeah, in this, I love this confrontation because Togusa is like, I have to go up the stairs first, and 2 grenades come down the stairs, and you're immediately like, fuck. But Bato, of course, yanks him out of the way and expertly shoots them.
And shoots the 2 grenades. They're M67 frags. It's fucking cool as shit. I did want to say, every man in a cyber noir has to make the decision. Are you going to be a wife and daughter guy, or are you going to be a basset hound guy? You must decide.
Yeah. The
two
genders.
The 2 genders.
Yeah.
I think I am a wife and daughter guy. I don't have any, but I think that's the kind of person I would be. What about y'all?
That Patrick Bateman ass apartment with a fucking telescope in it and a basset hound.
Yeah.
Brian, are you a basset hound or a wife and daughter guy?
Basset hound, for sure.
Talk about the mech of it all. I will also say that this whole sequence flexes some parts of Bato that we get more of in the series coming on about. Bato is a cyber warfare expert, not just a ranger. And so he does cyber hack everybody's eyes to give them a ghost image of him. Which is Mechs. He piloted their eyes. But also, he does that, and then his, like, being able to shoot grenades out of the sky. His competency as a cyber warfare expert is second only to the Major. And I feel like this movie, one thing it does good is it shows how good he is at that. Where he was always just, the Major was overshadowing everybody.
Yeah. I do like the hacking the eyes thing. This does set the precedence for this throughout the rest of the franchise. This is going to be an extremely important concept moving forward. Which I think is amazing, and I think that is when I mentioned why I rated Ghost in the Shell 1 so much lower, this is why, because I think the ability to aggressively and hostilely mess with your opponent's perception of reality during combat is extremely mech. I mean, it's spoofing your opponent's radar. It's that exact thing. So.
But after this all goes down and they get out of there alive, having taken out Scissorman.
I had one other thought for this, which is life and death is a puppet for the army. Not afraid of anything.
Okay, after they get out of there and you really are getting the authentic Ghost in the Shell 2 script experience.
You seriously are.
No, you know what? You're not, because I think it would have been better if Bato had been quoting all this shit, and every time Togusa had been like, Anyway.
Man, shut the fuck up. Yeah.
It would have been really funny if they was like, I went to cop school. I don't know
This movie
shit
would
about
be a
fuck.
10 out of 10 if at any point Togus had turned to Bato and said, man, shut the fuck
I
up.
love when Bato, when Togusa finally quotes some philosophy and Bato was like, oh, you must have some philosophy on your ghost. You're like me.
Now,
up.
this is
guys who know other guys have read Marcus Aurelius. Shut the fuck up.
So we have to talk about when Bato truly goes off, because this is also a mecha moment. I also have a dub correspondency thing. I will not hear a word against this. There is a small figure that passes by Bato in a convenience store and says, "You're in the kill zone," and then leaves. This is the major.
Yep.
This is Mary Elizabeth McGlynn as the major in the English dub. This is not the same voice actress as in the movie. Mary Elizabeth McGlynn is the major to me. This is the voice actress for the major going forward. I am obsessed with her. I think her deliveries are absolutely perfect. Also, just to give credence, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn deserves as much respect, I think, as Jennifer Hale. She is Cornelia from Code Geass. She's Dr. Misha and Maurice in Eureka 7. She is Julia in Cowboy Bebop. Yes. She's Yushi in Giant Robo. And she's Washu in Tenchi Muyo. She is everywhere. And she has been speaking to you your whole life if you've ever watched anime.
I love, first off, what is everybody's favorite major? At the end of this, we're all gonna have to talk about our favorite major cameo. But this is mine because she has this little disguise on. That's like a grandma
so
wig with
funny.
a bucket hat. And you just see her short-ass little child body walk by. But what a line. "You're in the kill box now" is the most major to Bato line ever spoken. If somebody told me that.
And it's so funny. You would immediately bail out of the convenience store.
I would just start blasting.
Because he's in the convenience store, of course. He feeds his dog wet food only from Basset Hound dog brand food.
That you have to make in the toaster oven.
Yeah, it looks like I straight up thought he was making curry until he fed it to the dog.
It was fucking bizarre. But yeah, so he's trying to buy this, and a couple of things happen very quickly. One, he's had this hollow image of the little girl with the braid that he got from the crime scene at Watson's house. And he spots a girl down the aisle crouched in front of a capsule machine who looks like her from behind. She has the braid, and he starts approaching, but he also clocks that somebody is following him. And it's shot very tensely. It's shot from above. You see him in the aisle.
John Wick ass scene right here. It is so oppressive how small they make this convenience store seem with the people in it. And like, okay, first.
And also how huge Bato is. He's the only thing that comes over the aisles. He's so large.
Your first watch of this scene, and we know what's coming, but like, what were your thoughts? Did you think what everyone was going to ambush him, or could you pick out?
I did. I thought it was going to be a scene. There's a classic trope that you've seen in some recent movies. They did it in the Man from U.N.C.L.E. They did it in John Wick 2, come to mention it, or whatever. The scene where the person in power reveals that everyone on the scene is a plant. Like, I thought they were going to turn around because there's another little girl in the aisle with a parent. And like, I thought the way it's shot, everyone kind of starts turning towards Bato at the same time.
Yeah.
I thought everybody was about to open fire on Bato. And that just, for me, enriched what you find out later.
So what happens?
But
he's grabbing the dog food. Somebody starts following him as he's walking down the aisle to go pay. And
well, he's walking down the aisle to go look at this girl who's crouched in front of the capsule machine.
It's a stack of tomato sauce, by the way.
Yeah, he turns because somebody he believes fires at him, and he gets shot in the arm, and then he opens fire, blows up the freezer cases, he's spraying in there, and then like everyone starts pulling out guns, including the convenience store owner. The girl starts to run away. That's when you clearly see her face and that it is the girl from the photo. She starts to run away. And he runs up to try to take out the cashier who is packing heavier hardware. I think he has a shotgun. and is stopped. Based Ishikawa moments. This is crazy. Is stopped because Ishikawa plugs a device into the back of his head and reverses
He's got that
the brain hack.
he's got that flash drive they used to sell at Best Buy that was like clean your computer from viruses just by plugging this in. He's got one of those and he just like shoves it right in there.
Canon, this is basically it's a hard disconnect from the net and like stops any active attack viruses, which is really cool.
That's really cool. But yeah, it's very visceral. It goes right to the back of the neck. Ishikawa, I think he's like standing partially on the counter because he needed the angle to get at Bato's tall fucking neck.
By the way, Ishikawa's wearing this like ugly green tracksuit in this whole movie. It's so
they nerfed
good.
His fucking hair, and I will never get over it.
They did nerf his hair. I think they decided only one guy could like have a mullet. They were just like, this is just Togusa's territory now. You have to have a clean haircut.
This movie is damned by its mediocrity. One of the best parts of this is after that, the color comes back to the world, and you don't realize that the grayscale and the blue tones have been ramped up throughout him walking through here. And his entire fever pitch is in this blue scale and kind of weird angles, and him getting that back hack into him, he's suddenly awake, and it's normal cinematography again. Really cool.
And also all the shots of the destroyed convenience store are like painted and they look really, really good.
We come to find out, because he's retrieved back to Section 9, we come to find out none of that happened. As far as ballistics is concerned, what it shows is he shot himself in the arm, then shot up the convenience store. It doesn't look like his attacker was present, and probably, I would guess, I didn't watch closely enough to catch it, I don't think the little girl was present.
She definitely was not there.
Yeah.
What I love about this too is like when this whole thing starts, you think the guy behind him is what he's responding to, but then as he turns and gets shot, like the angle doesn't make sense for either of the people on the other side of the aisle to have shot him. And I just think that's like a really, really important and like really well executed detail. So yeah, he shot himself in the arm. He lost most of his arm. They have a like short conversation about how like he's gonna have to get used to having a new arm. It's very automail pilled.
I also like that. So something that they established at the beginning is the cars check for being trailed automatically, which is wild. But also Bato, every time he's gotten dropped off by somebody else, he walks in one direction until they're gone and then actually goes to his place because he gets into a car and drives to his actual safe house because Bato has...
He's fucking maidenless.
He's maidenless. But as he's sitting there...
he's majorless.
Majorless
behavior.
Togusa comes in with the Basset Hound and is like, we knew something was up with you, and also we've already been trailing you, and we know where your safe house is, because they, of course, they know.
I love the way men love.
I love the way men love. I love the way Ishikawa like starts bragging about how he foresaw all of this coming, and then Togusa's like, yeah, okay, but you didn't have to take care of this fucking dog.
But you know what? The more someone waits to deceive you, the easier it is to deceive them.
Wow.
Oh my god, that's so true, bestie. So they're back at Section 9 and it's cop time because they have to close ranks. In light of the fact that Bato also obliterated every Yakuza man in like 3 counties in the previous scene, and this happened, like, this is a bad look, but it also looks like someone's framing him. So, figured I would finish that thought.
By the way, so you just took an M249 para, shot conservatively 500 Yakuza to death, leaving a bloody crime scene, and then shot yourself and created an entire confusion and almost killed people at a convenience store. And what does your boss do? Well, you're an American cop, so he puts you back on the beat.
You're not even an American cop, but this is so cop core. It's like, well, you just did a whole bunch of shit that looks incredibly bad for our department. You better get out there and solve this, because if you don't solve it, I might have to give you actual consequences.
So I love watching bad action Hollywood flicks. I love the shitty, like, I'm the cop who has to get it done. Den of Thieves 2 just came out, guys. It's great. Everybody should go see it. But if you watch Den of Thieves 1, it has real, like, loose cannon, doing cocaine, shooting people, I'm getting it done cop energy.
Dirty, hairy shit.
And this movie just has that same vibe to it.
It does not do it for me.
It does not fit.
But now we gotta go do a Blade Runner 2049 real quick. Just real quick. We gotta go get in the flyer.
Straight up like Paprika, but bad.
Yeah, we gotta get in the flyer and head to the nationless city.
We gotta head to like the alien planet from Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
Yeah,
like what are we doing?
They go to this constructed city area, and they give some backstory about how like this was built, but it's outside of any specific like national like control, and so this is like a haven for both. I like that they name both. It is a haven for mega corporations, for multinationals, and also the criminal empires that feed on their scraps.
This place is like totally surreal and like
it's really bizarre because from the top it looks like this crazy industrialist city full of like smog, and
it looks like Coruscant.
Ground level. Yeah, and then you get to ground level and there's a fucking parade, and this sequence. So in the first movie, right, when we get kind of the children's choir singing and that kind of like Shinto bell kind of religious like cool soundtrack, a lot of it is over scenes like when the major, I almost called it the mayor, when the mayor of my heart, when the major goes home and she's commuting on the ferry, and it's all hand drawn, but it's giving you a glimpse into life in the city, and it plays that song and it gives you these like scenes of people living. They try to do that here with the parade, but unfortunately they've done the entire parade in CG.
Well, and I don't think they're trying. It is Mamoru Oshii doing Mamoru Oshii shit. I don't think they're trying to do the same thing with the sequence. But either way, it's undercut by the fact that, it looks extremely strange.
The sense of scale is just so wild.
It's off. And you don't get the impression that anybody lives here. You have no idea what this place
like. You get one shot of like multiple levels with people watching the parade, and there's just like throngs of people, and you're like, okay, what is this place we're at? Like, how
I need y'all to know, one of the only other production facts that I have, this scene specifically apparently took about 2 years to animate.
For who? For what?
Like, yeah. I'm so sorry to y'all for putting in all that work for this. Unfortunately, it did not hit.
There are two kinds of beliefs, secrecy and honesty. It is not necessary to have both. But also, that's it. I just wanted to say that whole cathedral and everything is so stupid, but there is one other thing that the special economic zone gives us, which is birds.
Yes.
Birds are fucking
The birds are
everywhere.
We got a 3D bird modeler on staff. Let's go.
I know. I'm just sitting here, Mamoru Oshii with Pat Labor 2 going, like, I just wanted to animate something. Like, I just needed something to animate on the ones and twos. And I'm just like, okay, and so that's why you got a 3D bird modeler in this one?
Get over yourself. No, I want to say I think we can go through this at a pace because at this point in the movie, I was lost. I did not know what their goal was. I had no idea why they were here. Then
I do want to say, with the parade, so it doesn't look good. It is CGI. I will say, as someone who is a huge fan of the Lara Croft movie, which is about contemporary of this time and had really atrocious CGI, I think there is a lot of technical skill that went into executing the parade, the camera angles that they take around the parade, the moving parts, the lighting and shadow. I think that this was outstanding for 2004 CGI. Unfortunately, it is still 2004
As a
CGI.
big fan of Lara Croft, Niko just said, can we just...
That took me out. The rest of the sentence was undercut by that statement.
I'm
the same
sorry,
way this movie is undercut by the CG itself.
And I have given my bona fides as like a fan of...
I just like the people... Thank you for coming out as a fan of that movie. A movie that, as we all know, needs more fans.
Everyone, if you search the Lara Croft versus Simon robot fight, you will understand why I am both a robot fucker and a lesbian. That shit did something to my brain when I was a child.
Yeah, we know.
And it set
the
me on the course
podcast listeners
that we
know
now.
about this if you've listened. Niko's brought this up before.
Look it up. This you can okay.
Do we have that
every part
in the
of my
lightning
personality
round
you can
drops?
trace back to this DVD. No, but I will bring it up because actually Simon probably is a mech. Well, it's a robot, but anyway.
We gotta get back to this movie.
Yeah, they're in the special economic zone. They go through the parade sequence. Everyone who's hand animated looks like shit in this sequence for some reason because they applied like a weird smear filter to them. But
this
Vatos
is where the 4K
they're
works.
in this place.
It looks good. Sorry, it looks consistent. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. But they're only here because Bato is chasing down a lead. He knew a guy back when he was serving, back in the jungle, as they repeatedly reference. A guy named Kim, who was a soldier, but also a hacker. Yeah, Kim Kitsuragi is his contact. No, but he's trying to track this guy down, so he finds some little squirrely asshole on the street. They corner him and they get the information on where to find Kim, his contact from.
Wait, I have one other screenshot for this, which is new emote just dropped, which is the Bato version of the head.
I fucking hate the CG Bato. Why would you do it?
So yeah, they go find this Kim guy, and we straight up go into like the dream universe. Like they're in this weird suspended Victorian manor atop a lake. They like come out on a giant foot. Like it's so strange, and like it feels so incongruous.
In accordance with the will of the deceased, gifts of flowers and flowers for the ceremony are strictly prohibited.
This I liked. Now, a note on Kim himself. Dub correspondence moment. This is Travis Willingham.
Is it?
Yeah.
He's doing creepy pervert so well. So this is Kim. He is obsessed with dolls and puppets. And he is picking up, he's like, hey, I heard Haraway gave you some themes. I'm here to give you the rest of the themes.
Yeah.
And what he does is he traps them in brain hell in his creepy manner so that he can deliver a lot of theme information and a lot of philosophy and a lot of quotes. I like some of the elements of this, right? There's a really funny character moment for Bato where they come into the manor, they're exploring, and then Togusa calls him upstairs because it looks like Kim was fried while hacking someone. It's been staged like he is dead. And when they approach the console, that message pops up where it's like, the deceased would prefer, like, don't make gifts of flowers or release live birds or whatever. And Bato's just like, okay, you stupid faker, and grabs his chair and just throws him, and the guy has to, like, reveal that he is still alive. But he, like, flips the chair, but it becomes apparent that they have been brain hacked, I guess, like, pretty much since the moment that they arrived.
How do we know this? Hey, what's in the lobby?
The fucking major is there.
The major's there, yeah. This was really cool. We have to hand it to him.
The major child body from the end of the movie is just kneeling on the floor with a bunch of letter cards, and she spelled out a word. And first off, that's like, we're all like, oh, huh, weird. But also, did you guys catch the shadow in the windows that's pointing Bato where to go?
No, I didn't.
I didn't. That's really good.
It was lost in all the fucking CGI.
When he's walking through the manor, there's a shadow that you see in one of the windows, and he's using it. It's to guide him, and it's like blocking doors he shouldn't go to. And then he gets to a door, and there's a shadow, and the hand is just like reaching towards the door, and that's how he know. And that shadow, I don't know who the fuck it is.
I mean, it's clearly the major.
No, it's like a tall dude. I don't get it.
That's the major's.
It could be the major. She could be a tall dude if she wants. She's a formless entity now.
So true.
This whole sequence frustrates me so much because I think if the movie were more about the stuff that they're talking about, it would hit a little bit better. B, this mansion like could look really cool, but looks like absolute ass all the time. I hate everything in here. Yeah, there's like some really cool character stuff going on with Bato here. I mean, like his preconceptions and his strong beliefs and curiosities in the idea of what inhabits a body because of his experiences with the major is such like a loud echo throughout all of this and like all of the ways he's having all these crises and things. And I think this conversation really gets to the heart of it, which is to say, like, the Kim, I keep wanting to call him the puppet master because he's a puppet and he looks like the director from Paprika. But Kim has this like weird fetish about like the lifeless body and that as like a visual motif and how like that like translates to puppets and dolls and things like that. And this is going to piss Bato off in a similar way that Haraway pisses Togusa off with like the kids thing, because that's my wife you're talking about, for all I know, like my wife had, what if I'm an empty shell syndrome? It's it could be so much more interesting. Unfortunately, like I don't like having to see that shitty looking door open 4 times, you know? I like
the environment here, I think, undercuts anything. Like you said, we're fully in the dream realm. Like, the brain hacking sequence itself, I don't think is the biggest offender so much as this house is. Because if they were getting brain hacked and then when Bato breaks the brain hack, they're just in somebody's fucking apartment, I think that would have hit so much stronger than the fact that we have to accept the reality that this house exists. They were just trapped in different nightmare versions of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, it's fucking bizarre. I do think it does some interesting time loop stuff. I love a time loop. The way Bato figures out that they're trapped in one is really cool because the Major is leaving him these like breadcrumb clues in the lobby. Specifically, it makes a reference to golems and the word that activates and then kills a golem.
The man-made golem was energized by the letters AEMAETH, or truth, written on its forehead. But the first letter, AE, was erased, and MAETH, or death, was shown, and it returned to the earth. That is also a quote.
Judaism, son.
They say that entire thing.
Yeah.
They just give it to you.
Shout out to golems. Yeah. But like, it's a really bizarre sequence. I will say again, this movie is so, you know that meme graph where it's like, it's so over, we're so fucking back, it's so over, we're so fucking back. It's doing this constantly because this whole sequence kind of sucks in the CG, but then there are visual moments in it that are like shocking. Like this, I think the second loop when they go in, the body, Kim's like puppet body he has actually looks like Togusa, and it's like they have a Togusa puppet that is talking
and
to
Togusa
them.
starts walking towards himself, lecturing him about like what it means to be like a ghostless body.
Yeah, and then there's a moment where Togusa looks
this
over
is Mechs
and
also.
Yeah. There's a moment where Togusa looks over and Bato's face pops open the same way that the Gynoids faced it, and it's like a jump scare. It's so cool. Like there are a lot of interesting like moments in this, but overall it was just kind of like, what the fuck are we doing at this point?
One second, my little doll is coming in with tea. Blah 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 blah.
Oh my god, the plopping of those little feet is insane. This is when I said this movie is diabolical, this is exactly what I was talking about. This fucking
I'm obsessed with the tea robot.
You know what I thought was really funny? So it's a traditional kind of style of
It's a China doll.
Yeah, it's a China doll. Spoilers for the game later. I did laugh when I found a specific asset I needed for that game, and it looked almost exactly like this doll. And I was like, oh shit.
Again, this doll is also in Paprika. It's very strange. Like, if you guys have watched Paprika or have seen it recently, like, there are so many, like, straight up drawings that are just in Paprika.
Just as a good fortune shows itself 3 times, so bad luck shows its signs 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah, so true.
Then once again, events just are following from events, I guess, and I'm taking the movie at its word for it because we have Bato riding a cyber dolphin. What the fuck is happening?
Yeah. Allegedly, they find out from Kim, who did work for Locus Solus, that Locus Solus has a huge aircraft carrier. Yeah, they have Big Shell, and it's in international waters, and so. Bato decides to physically infiltrate by riding, as Brian said, a like robot orca or whatever out there, a robot dolphin.
Wait, I forgot something that I have to, as the Alice correspondent, talk about, which is in the dream.
I would just like to say, because this is an audio medium, Brian just like set up to take a big bong rip as we got to this part.
Alice said she's the Alice correspondent also, is something I want to
We can't talk about it. But
if you can't be a correspondent for yourself, who can you be a correspondent for?
Can I get an amen?
In the dream cycles, they talk about the ship off the coast, and you show in the visual of it, there is one off the coast, and it looks like a battleship. And in the sequence, it is a battleship, and it starts shelling the fucking mansion, and I just loved that sequence. That shit was fucking
cool. I forgot that.
That shit ripped. It's shooting miniguns and shit. That's it. Alice correspondent moment over.
It was bizarre.
Yeah, that would get you.
Thank you, Alice, our Alice correspondent. But yeah, so, and Togusa, okay, this part pissed me off. Because here's my thing. In Section 9, Ishikawa is the hacker guy. And I know Togusa's on the scene, but like, it kind of bothered me that Togusa was trying to hack through Kim. I was like, you should remote hook up Ishikawa. Like, where's Ishikawa in this scene? Why is Togusa hacking?
They said that they don't have support of Section 9 anymore. They're on their own.
Oh, that's right. They were working the case alone. That makes sense. Thank you, Alice.
A mirror is not a tool for enlightenment, but a tool for wandering.
I actually really like the weird, like, so Togusa's on, like, so this is the amount of character development we're going to get for Togusa and Bato's relationship in this movie, which is that Bato has put Togusa on, like, a cyber yacht and had him do the, like, remote work. Because he has grown to understand that, like, Togusa wants to do the right thing and wants to help, but also can't do the Bato thing of, like, I'm 9 feet tall and 9 feet wide, and I'm going to charge you right now.
My perfectly cube-shaped body.
Yeah, my perfectly cube-shaped body.
Imagine a Bato that is perfectly spherical and of uniform density.
The platonic ideal of Bato.
They could have done it. They had the CG assets. But yeah, so Bato gets into this ship, and it is full, like, this is a sneaking mission. He has his gun, but he's, like, suited up. He's got his body armor on. The way he drops into this ship, again, when the hand animation pops, it looks really good. There's a fluidity to it.
The rest of this movie looks pretty good, I have to say.
The rest of this movie looks incredible. You know, like, there's CG use, but, like, the gynoids are activated by the security system, and they are loaded with combat software. And they are all naked, but they're very doll-like in a way that I appreciated, and that makes them 100% creepier when they start absolutely beating ass.
They fucking whip ass. They move around like they're being pulled by strings. Like when one does, like, a flying kick across the room, it moves as though it's being pulled by its own ankle. Like, it looks amazing. And also they are decapitating people.
The security forces did not expect that.
They
got rolled
ready.
So fast by those guys.
Oh,
I
my
love
God.
the first 10 minutes of Elfin Lied.
Same, but unironically.
But yeah, so they're doing all this, and then one gynoid, like, when it looks like Bato might be overwhelmed, one gynoid comes in. Yeah, we are saluting. One gynoid drops in who is clearly behaving different from the others. She takes a gun off of Bato and starts absolutely whipping ass, and there's only one person
back
this could
to back. They are immediately on site, dudes being bros.
Yeah, they are immediately.
So I want to know this as somebody who had not seen this before, Niko. When you first saw the gynoid and you went, looks like the Major, did you expect this to happen?
I kind of did.
We all did.
There's so much foreshadowing. Like, one thing we haven't said, all the gynoids have kind of a short, rough bob, the same color as the Majors, and they have those blue eyes the way she has them in the first movie.
Their eyes are I believe their eyes are way greener, and I do think they have a different face shape. But they do. It is evoking the Major for sure.
The Major without looking identical to the Major.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, when I first saw them, when it was first, like, in that first scene where Bato is killing it and it's saying, like, please help us, I was like, is the Major controlling this doll for a second? And then, like, I got more details and I was like, no, this isn't the Major. But, like, it does immediately bring to mind the Major.
Now that we have the Major in a doll that looks like all the other dolls, how are we gonna make her visually distinct?
It's time for wifeguy the return. He has been waiting his whole life to give her this vest.
Those who understand death are rare. Many endure it not with determination, but with stupidity and habituation. In other words, people die because they have to.
And you know who also has to do something? Bato has to give his vest to the Major. One, so that it covers up her totally, like,
sexless doll body.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting that the dolls themselves, like, look sexless, and, like, what we found out from the morgue scene is that they've been modified. I think it's interesting that they seem to, like, I mean, the movie's called Innocence, like, there are other themes it plays with, but it is interesting, the idea that they don't necessarily start out sexual when they come out of the pod. They come out actually creepy. Really. And it honestly, it helps so much for characterization to then see this gynoid running around with Bato with the big vest on. It actually really does visually help you like make that leap to like, because thankfully like they don't do anything where like the face reconfigures itself and it looks more like Major. Major is very much just possessing a factory gynoid unit. And you know why she's here? She has to get direct access to the core. We have to do, like Alice said, they're trying to cash in on the original.
This is what I was talking about
arm
too.
Apart to pull out the core.
I fully rolled my eyes. I was like, this is so fucking.
So one thing they do in this movie that ends up happening a lot in the series and is one of my favorite cyberpunks is the hardwired security dudes. Who are just like trying to stop the infiltration hack, and like they're just saying things aloud as like they're locked into these hard suits hacking.
Oh, these creepy robots speaking Chinese,
dudes, by the way, in there. Those are guys in hard.
I didn't realize
those
that
are
those
guys
were
in hard cases who are trying to hack, counter hack.
Love the way that they modulate the speaking Chinese like into the my god,
but
it
it's
sounds
like
so good. It's
disconnecting
ASMR.
from head office, trying to isolate, running attack barrier, resetting at level 1, and they're just saying words as she's doing this.
If only this had been hand animated, it would have whipped ass.
It looks like garbage. It just sounds amazing.
But also, something that is hand animated that's great is Bato with his rifle chambered in .30 caliber, which that's a wild thing, but I mean, you have to have stopping power for Mechs, but him reloading, and he does one of the most tactical things, which if you're ever doing a last stand, and this is one of my favorite dudes being bros things, is you take your remaining magazines and stack them in front of you so you can reload by just picking them off the floor. It was really well done, actually. There's no tension to this scene because they don't show him, like, we snap to like him in hand-to-hand combat like he said he would have to be, but we don't see what's happening while the Major is hacking.
Yeah, they don't really do a lot of intercutting here, which I kind of thought they would. Like they do the hacking stuff. They do the in Cyberpunk 2077, these kind of guys are called dwellers, like people who are jacked into the system to do counter hacking. Like they cut to the dwellers, they're doing, like Brian said, the modulated Chinese, it's all in 3D, whatever. And then they like cut back to Bato having exhausted all ammunition and being in hand to hand. But Alice, like you said, I think it would have been stronger if that had been intercut with him like finishing the magazine, having to club up, having to start fighting, and him actually taking some damage from the gynoids because they are lethal, they're dangerous. And there's a specific shot when he first reloads where it really shows the door behind him and the Major, and I kept expecting the gynoids to come in from the other side too, so he would have to stay mobile around the Major to keep her protected, and they just didn't. Like, that just didn't happen. They only come in through, but I mean, it is, like Brian said, it's guys being dudes. This is the ultimate, like, in Mad Max Fury Road, when she lines up the sniper shot on Max's shoulder, like, this is that kind of moment. This is the wife guy moment.
When there is no reason, it is possible to beat the drum and attack. I do want to say one mech thing, also, which is when he gets in the ship, he downloads the schematic and he overlays it with his visual processors, and he's running through the ship, opening the doors with the back hack. And it's one of the few really cool uses of CGI.
Because the doors open like weird, like diagonal apertures. So like
where he is leaping through them just as they're opening in perfect time. And then he jumps down a central column and he calculates which gantry he needs to land on and then which he needs to crash into to slow his fall. And yes, again, it's trying to beat on the same, Cyborgs land hard from the first movie, but it is very satisfying.
Nah, this hit. This was awesome. Bato
it does look
fucking
really good.
Rules.
Also worth mentioning, like the hacker, the guys that they have in the hard shells don't just take L's, they do fry Kim. And I thought that was a cool detail. It's like, that makes sense why you would want to route your mind through somebody else's mind, so that when they burned the hack, they burned Kim's brain and not Togusa's. And so Togusa ends up getting kicked out, but he isn't killed. Kim is killed.
By the way, I don't know if we mentioned this, another mech thing. Kim is like doll obsessed, and so he's like modded his face to where he speaks through like a Raiden speaker, and when he talks, his mouth clicks open like a puppet, and it makes a little wood block clicking noise. It's very creepy and very cool. I just think it's a neat detail.
I do want to talk about one thing I we can't.
You get one.
We can't talk about.
And if you say a quote,
we can't talk about a Japanese film without talking about Japan, even if this isn't set in Japan. I found the fact that they were in a special economic zone that had Chinese motifs and now on a ship with Chinese motifs and Chinese language a little Japan hating China.
I agree.
Like, I feel like there was a lot of subtext in it that was like kind of problematic.
No, I was going to say, I think that this is interesting. So one thing we mentioned when we first covered Ghost in the Shell is that like a lot of cyberpunk that we see coming out of the West is expressing specific cultural anxieties about the Japanese economic miracle.
Exactly.
And about like the apparent ascendancy of Japan. And I think it's really interesting when you go to cyberpunk from Japan, obviously it's going to express like Japanese anxieties and Japanese cultural beef and stuff like that. And like, I do think it's interesting. I do think that this movie has a perspective on like illegal activities that happen in legally strange situations. And it does attach most of that to China in a way that is like really freighted considering the history of Imperial Japan and China. And like, it's so interesting to get this like cultural note that almost like doesn't hit for us. Like Alice, you were saying, it's like, it felt uncomfortable. You were like, okay, I feel like there is like a cultural attack going on here, but like, we don't have all that cultural information.
There's a whisper in our ghost, but like, no, I that's basically what I was going to say, which is basically just like, yeah, it, one of the, biggest things that cyberpunk as a genre kind of can't stop doing a lot is like making the East like this dehumanized, like lifeless techno center of sprawl and endless like chug and consumption. And like Ghost in the Shell does that to Japan as well, like, to be clear. But I think the choice to make the sequence where they go to the economic zone and the like big shell sequence itself as well look so different and alien and distinct.
I believe the parade itself is based on an Indonesian type of parade. So like there's a lot of evocation of like Southeast Asia and like, I guess kind of the more dubious kind of the way that some parts of the world look at like Southeast Asia specifically as being really like dubious and like a home mostly for criminal activity and for people who are trying to dodge taxes,
poverty, and like the specific, like I said, the intro, like where Bato's walking around like that really dirty street and alleyway, like that looks lived in. Like it looks like people live there in a way that this place didn't look like people lived in it. And so like I just that was a thought I had as well, especially like you said when Locus Solus ended up being like a Chinese international corporation.
Okay. Actually, in correction, so the parade sequence is based on a religious procession and a temple in Taiwan. So again, I mean, the relationship between China and Taiwan also fraught, but like a similar kind of evocation.
Well, and again, Eat, Pray, Love. Like this is very Hideo Kojima. Like I'm just gonna grab this thing from this place, and it's fine. And that might be what's going on here. But
the deceased is pleased to announce that they will be passing away on this day of the month. We have placed an ad for them.
So what do we find out here at the end? Which I guess technically I keep saying this movie's about sex trafficking, and it is, but I guess that's kind of a twist. Sort of.
Okay, guys. This feels gross, right? Like even.
Oh, this is awful.
It's awful, but also in like where we are in the world right now. I felt so. I barfed. I made a Sound of Freedom joke, and I am not even joking. I am so upset at this turn.
I was pogging, but only because this is exactly what I expect. So, like, if you think about the world we live in now and how, like, Amazon saying, like, oh, we have an AI, if you shop at Amazon brick and mortar stores, you don't have to go to the checkouts, it'll just automatically check out your account and blah, blah, blah. And then what it comes to find out is, like, that wasn't, like, image recognition or sophisticated computers. That was, like, underpaid people in the third world that they were exploiting to do that. And a lot of the work that goes into supposed tech miracles and like technological advances, when you trace it all the way back, typically comes down to unpaid or underpaid people in a part of the world that is marginalized being exploited for their labor. And like, I personally, and I love that this exists, I had been thinking about writing a story based on this premise. My pet theory is if we ever get like humanoid robots with supposedly humanoid personalities, or if we ever get an AI that actually seems like a person, we're gonna find out like 5 years after the fact that they were exploiting people and that was just people. They couldn't actually program AI, they were just using people's brains. And so when this happened, I was like, yeah, this is exactly it. Like, it would cost way more and be way more intensive to actually figure out how the human mind works. Why not just use human minds that are unvalued? Like, so what you find out, the Major hacks into the ship, they get into the core, they find soul dubbing machines. And these machines are like huge tanks. Yeah, ghost dubbing machines. So these tanks are huge machines that have children in them, apparently trafficked children. And this is something I'm so interested in hearing y'all's takes about. So the ghost dubbing machine basically makes copies of their ghosts that they can insert into the gynoids to give them a more humanoid affect, basically. But what they say is that the ghost dubbing machines damage the child in the machine with like each copy made, basically, which is so interesting because like when we think about digital files and the things we are told are like you're committing piracy if you torrent a movie, when actually once something is made a digital file, it is infinitely copyable without degradation of the original. This is a situation where there is degradation of the original in a way that I don't think we see around a lot of technology. And that is like the major threat that the children who are trafficked here are facing, other than obviously being exploited for their labor. A lot of them are basically being destroyed in the process of
Unfortunately,
doing
the human consciousness is too much data. Like we will never be able to truly capture human consciousness on the data forms that we have. And even in sci-fi, it's hard to ever conceive that because the human brain is just Googleplex's amount of information. And so you're going to... But I think it's like, how do you make a sex robot feel less like a sex robot and more like a human? You put a bit of humanity in it. And it's a running theme throughout the Ghost in the Shell series. But the way that this one is done, okay, I just want to talk about what Bato does in this scene, which is he finds the girl from the photo and he pops her out of her machine and she's instantly...
And again, this is the sequence I was like, this looks incredible. The way that this is animated, just him removing her from the
He's
machine.
He's very gentle, makes sure she doesn't get caught on wires, pulls her down, and she wakes up and just grabs onto him out of fear and starts to speak to him. And it's kind of wholesome. And she starts to tell about how she embedded that in the ghost so that it would get out there and she would be asking for help, and that she was working with the guy who got killed to...
Yeah,
and that he is the one who helped to plant that and start this whole robot murders to like make it aware of what's happening. So they were reaching out for help across the net and they found Bato and they knew it was going to be Bato and everything. And she talks about how she embedded that soundbite into the gynoid from the intro. And Bato yells at her because that got that gynoid killed. And this is where we get into the philosophy of this in a way that like we can talk about it here, but Bato personhoods the gynoids, and I can get that, but he has a human trafficking victim in front of him that he just saved, and he is yelling at her for getting a gynoid broken. And I will say in the dub at least, he doesn't really yell at her. He just kind of I would say firmly points out like the kind of negative end of her actions, which again, like I agree with you, like talking to a recent victim who's probably shell-shocked as fuck, you're not getting anywhere with that. But yeah, I don't think it's something Bato wouldn't do.
I think that I loved this, frankly. Yeah. I thought that this was like the master stroke of this movie because it's a feel-good ending to be like, and we got the child trafficking to safety, the child trafficking victim, we got her out. But for Bato to be like, because she explains the thing as like, I created the soundbite, we were calling out for help, and then Watson was the one who manipulated their behavior so that they would start killing people and attract the attention of the police. But every time that's happened, the gynoid was then destroyed afterwards. And basically what Bato is kind of gesturing to is like you brought up earlier, he's kind of like, my wife has am I a ghost in an empty shell syndrome. Every gynoid had a however diluted, a copy of a person inside them. And every time that they killed someone, not only were they made to commit a murder, which is a horrific act to be forced to do, they then either committed suicide, which to me expresses something about being forced to murder and then being left with the results of your action. Like, it makes sense to me that they would then commit suicide if left on their own, or they would be killed by someone else in the area trying to stop them. And so basically, Bato is like pointing out that, like, yeah, I'm sorry, there was nothing you could do as a child. Like, obviously you are a victim of this, but the way that you reached out also victimized every other gynoid unit. And one of the things the girl mentions when he first pulls her out, she says, I'm stage 4. My friend is stage 5. She hasn't been talking to me anymore. And the implication is like her friend has been so degraded by the ghost dubbing machines that she's gone. Mm-hmm. And like, all I could think about is like, yeah, that may have been like 7 iterations of your friend's personality, however diluted.
Exactly.
And you got every version of that killed.
So,
and for Bato, who like interacted with the Major, who felt maybe she was only a ghost in a shell, I think that explains why he's so angry.
But she says, we weep for the blood of a bird, but not for the blood of a fish. Blessed are those with a voice. If the dolls could speak, no doubt they'd scream, I didn't want to become human.
Yeah, I really love this.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's really good.
It's so good.
A lot of my stuff around AI, where I really love the idea of AI, is specifically, and I think I've touched on this before, is the idea that we create a species. We create a species that then becomes its own species, and we have like a fellow traveler. Because like I think a lot of human desire to talk about aliens and UFOs and other species and secret species and things like that is this like desire to not be alone in being conscious entities. And like, I'm very interested in the idea, if we ever honestly figured out how to do it and didn't just exploit people from like Thailand or whatever to create AI looking stuff. I like the idea that we would have a fellow traveler as a sentient species to have experiences that are different, but that we can compare to each other. And I think that this series is interested in some of that stuff too. And about like, to what extent is a copy of a copy like still a person and still able to have an identity and still able to, like, I think there's something very evocative about the fact that the gynoid in the first scene when Bato is killing her rips her own chest open. There's like agency in that, but there's also this expression of like something dysfunctional in the personality. Like, I think there are so many little nuanced elements to the ideas of the gynoids here, to the whole thing of the ghost dubbing. And I kept thinking about, like, we're talking about sex trafficking and stuff. It doesn't line up with digital copying because digital copying doesn't degrade the original. If you photocopy a photocopy, obviously it degrades, but like making a copy of a digital file doesn't degrade it. But every instance of trauma and abuse on a person does degrade them. And so that's how I understood like the children being destroyed by this process, is that like every time they were copied, it was functionally every time it was an instance of abuse. And so, like, I don't think Bato is right here, but I think his priorities are so interesting. And I do love that quote from the Major. Because, like, legitimately, like, there are people who buy fish and then treat them extremely badly. And then if they die, they're just like, well, fish die, you know, whatever. But if you did that to a cat, you would be on the fucking, like, ASPCA drama shows where they show them, like, busting into your house to detain you.
Well, and, like, to talk about the material of our show, too, it's like, one of the things this plot does that plays with like Mechs as like the human body is investigates like how, you know, that can serve as a prison, which is something that hits extremely hard for me. Like that is always going to be incredibly like interesting as and fertile ground to like kind of be curious about what it means to like live inside of a thing.
Yeah, I was really compelled by this.
I haven't forgotten, so I can't even remember.
Right.
I do think it's funny. One thing I immediately thought, like you said, tying it back to our concerns as a mech podcast, I had a question immediately after watching this movie, and it was very funny because I was having a hard time falling asleep. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, and I keep having the thought, if a mech has sentience and its pilot commits a war crime while piloting it, do you prosecute both the pilot and the mech? Like, I kept having that thought, and it was specifically me thinking about, like, the gynoids are being killed. They're reaching out for help, but they are committing murders. And it's like, the actions that you cannot be held responsible for that are coerced, but also the actions you can be held responsible for, like the suicides, because you have some autonomy. And I was so interested in that. I just kept thinking about, like, if we actually used The Hague and if we actually, like, prosecuted people, like, at Nuremberg, like, if mechs were involved in that, it's like, do you prosecute both pilot and machine if the machine is capable of thought? Like, I kept thinking about that, and I think that's an element this film gives me that I'll be thinking about as we continue to do other mech. So I also want to
talk about the originating quote that the Major is alluding to here, which is from Ryoko Saito's Ryoku narrative. And the quote is, "Sorrow for the blood of birds, but not for the blood of fish. Blessed is the man who has a voice." Birds sing. We love their singing. We love their chirping. They talk, and that's why it's like, you feel a little bad if you kill a songbird, but you never really feel bad because a fish is just a fish that goes blop, 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 blop. But the fact is, until these robots have a voice in the Ghost universe, they are still just seen as robots. And a lot of what this taps on is like, no one cared about these gynoids until one of them said, "Please help us." So until it had that voice, it was just... I don't know if you recall in the entire scene of the parade. That took too long. In the parade scene, it's a celebration of life and death, and they're having a funeral pyre where people are throwing their old robots into this fire to release them and get rid of them in a giant funeral pyre. And I think it's a lovely scene because it's like, different people put different value on the robots in the Ghost in the Shell universe. And we're going to get into this more in the Year in the Shell of at what point do we differentiate these AI models from the humans around us? And ghosts muddy that water in such a horrible way because it's like, well, what is a ghost in this universe? It's a soul. And can these robots have souls? How much of a soul makes us empathetic to them? And in this case, it's a tangent piece of a child's soul in this gynoid that is the instigating factor for this entire investigation. And that is Mechs.
And I hadn't even clocked that. That was such a good point. They mentioned that the "please help us" is in the sound buffer, and when you watch the scene where Bato first destroys a gynoid, that sound is playing over and over, but there's no indication that Bato hears it. And then later when they examine it, they say it's like a doll, but it's been modified so you can have sex with it. It has additional organs. At no point do they ever say that it has the ability to speak. So I have to assume it does not have a voice box or the ability to speak. The machines are totally silent throughout the entire fight on the boat. I think you're literally right. There is no way for these things to speak other than through their actions or through a file that is extracted from them that isn't audible until someone extracts it. Like, I missed that, and that is such a
dialogue at the beginning
element.
When they're talking about it, about how these aren't civilian use robots, which are utilitarian and need to be able to just function as if they are a human. So like your Section 9 typing robots, they can do other things. A gynoid is a purpose-built mass production thing that the Major talks about it, about how even the combat modules loaded into the gynoid she's piloting takes up most of its memory because it doesn't have as intensive of a processing unit.
She has to like shell out the combat information in order to make it a thing that she can use to hack the security system in, which is why Bato has to defend her.
And she can't operate its facial expression. She can't, like, there's so much here. Like I said, I mean, this movie is such a struggle because, like, you watch it and it's, like, incomprehensible. It looks like shit. You're like, what the fuck is happening? And then again, there are just these moments where it's like, that was an incredible visual. That was a really cool idea. This quote is relevant, but you didn't need to read the whole quote. Like, there's so many, like, the quote at the beginning, the very beginning. So it gives you like 4 paragraphs of setup information.
Our gods and our hopes are no longer merely scientific, what reason is there for our love not to be scientific as well?
Yeah, I was like, damn, that whips. That whips. But also, you use that as an epitaph or
Wait,
an
let me read that, but I'm going to read the
non-translated, the original quote.
If our gods and our hopes are nothing but scientific phenomena, then let us admit it must be said that our love is scientific as well. Anyway, there's this great anime called We Fell in Love, and so we tried to use science to prove it, in which two nerdy scientists try and use love to fall in love. It's very good. Everybody should watch it. This has been your Alice correspondent update.
Thank you for the Alice correspondent update.
Our correspondent Alice.
Then,
thank you.
To bring us out, the Major assures Bato that anytime he logs onto the net, she'll be there. Mary McGlynn's delivery of "I'm leaving" before the robot drops to the ground literally brought tears to my eyes.
It's really good.
It's
This is
really
what I mean. She is performing her lines, and there are so many moments throughout this where the voice actors are just saying their words as fast as they can to get them into the audio track.
Yeah.
And you see what I mean, because her deliveries are so different. And honestly, I think Bato's dialogue improves in these scenes when he actually is like having an emotional response to the Major being present.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's why it seems like he's yelling at the child, if only because even if he's not literally yelling, it's the most like emotion in his voice this whole movie.
I also like this line from a script perspective of the Major in the first movie and in most iterations, talk about a ghost in the shell. She loves to ghost people. She's just walking away, dropping a conversation. She doesn't wrap up. And I love it that she gives this pregnant pause beforehand, because I was just assuming the doll was just going to drop as the Major went back to the net and she wouldn't say anything after that, where she says, "I'll be with you in the net." And for her to say that, it's so for Bato to be like, "I need you to know this body is not going to be me anymore. I'm leaving back to where I belong." It's so good.
Yeah.
It's really good. But the weirdest, the movie could have ended there, but we got to wrap things up with our open
We have to
plot
go to
lines,
the
which is
American suburbs outside Tokyo.
Toga's daughter's birthday.
Oh, yeah. What the
and
fuck
Bato
is
retrieving
this?
his
Why
dog.
is this house painted background? What are we doing?
This little girl looks creepy and her doll looks creepier.
Yeah, Togusa gets his fucking daughter for her birthday a doll. After all this, Togusa was present for this whole movie. What the fuck are you talking about? Get her a Nintendo. Like, what are you doing? Why did you get her a scary porcelain white girl doll? Anyway, Bato gets his dog back, and that's what matters.
And then the scene is good, which is, again, you can choose to be one kind of noir detective, which is your house in the suburbs with your wife and daughter and creepy doll, or you can be Basset Hound's single bachelor. And they have a short little conversation about, do you want to come in and have dinner? And Bato's just like, no, I'm not. That's not me. Nope.
Wrong genre, bro.
I could never imagine Bato doing that. Could you guys literally
I will say,
what if he had said
funny?
yes?
I could fathom it because I've been playing Alan Wake 2. It's your Niko correspondent moment. No, I've been playing Alan Wake 2, and it's really funny because there is a character in that who is literally like a literary archetypical detective. Like he is like, there's so much speculation around whether he actually exists or he was manifested by Alan Wake through his crime fiction. And he goes home with his partner at one point, who is a single mother, or no, she's not a single mother, but she has a kid and a family. And there's a photo, and it becomes plot important later, that Casey doesn't just sit around drinking bourbon. He once attended his partner's daughter's birthday party, and there's a picture of him doing the dishes afterwards. So I immediately got a mental image of Bato doing the dishes.
Bato would do the dishes.
Bato would do the dishes. So it's
Bato would do the dishes.
It isn't incompatible, but I think it is outside the imagination space of this movie.
And
Like,
not to talk about things.
yeah.
Bato would wear an apron and do the dishes.
For his wife, the Major. I will say, not to talk too much about media we haven't touched on, they do right by Togusa's family eventually, my favorite parts of the entire Ghost franchise is when we do anything of them not working for Section 9, where it's just like, what do these fuckers do in their free time? Wild to me.
This is that's the best thing a 24-hour show of Ghost in the Shell can give you, which is like, what do these people do for fun?
I bet Ishikawa's super normal. I want to see Bato posting.
You know who's super normal is the Major.
Does she fish? I want her to fly fish like Will Graham. Anyway.
You are going to lose your fucking mind. I
I'm
literally
going to become
can't
a
wait.
different type of lesbian.
The awakening too is happening.
What do we need to get into, Alice?
We've gone across the net, and we need to rate these goddamn mechs.
So for your consideration, I pulled out, obviously we need to talk about the gynoids. I think we can also talk about Kim's puppets, but I'm opening it up to you. Are there any other things we need to talk about as mechs? Do we need to talk about the electronic dolphin?
Is that the guy's piloting?
No, that's
It's
a vehicle.
Hey, I struggled with this. I struggled with this deeply because there ain't a mech I can point at and go, that's a mech. All of these are philosophical
Really?
mechs to me in a way that, like, yes, I conceptually get it, but for what I need in a mech, the major piloting the gynoid is about as close to my ethos with these as we get, and I do think she pilots it very well in a really cool way. That shit moves wild, and that's the only reason I can be like, yeah, this isn't just like robot consciousness swapping the movie. This is mechs, but it doesn't do much for me, and I'm just coming from the mech perspective, but it's hard to not, layer it in with everything that's on top of it. So let the spirit come forth. This is a 2.
I feel literally the exact opposite. The tank in Ghost in the Shell didn't do a whole lot for me. It was cool. But like what really draws me, like I agree that the most mech this movie gets is when the Major is piloting that gynoid. However, that is more than enough for me. That is entirely everything that I need. I think that it it's thematically relevant. It is what has been happening to these machines since the beginning. She gets a cool thing to make herself visually distinct, which is mecha. The idea of hacking someone's eyes and again, like interrogating the way that they have, one of Kim's lines is humanity has been aggressively mechanizing itself. That kind of shit is always going to hit for me. Like I said, the hacking of the eyes thing is going to become really important as the franchise goes on. And I think that if we're going to talk about this in terms of being a mech thing, like that needs to be like one of the cornerstones of it because of the ways that it does interrogate, like how we, the potential obstacles that we put in our own way in order to pursue some like ease of access thing. Like I said, Bato special eyeballs, which do again, just straight mecha shit, do incredibly cool stuff. I think this is an 8.
Okay. We got some extremes. This is interesting.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to come down like in the low middle. I think I'm going to say this is a 4 for me because I agree that everything that happens with the gynoids just absolutely whip shit. Like it is absolutely incredible, especially the Major piloting it, the way they move, the way, again, I mean, we get the repetition of her destroying herself, but I do every time that you see the skin layers split and then you see the internals fall apart. Like that does hit for me. I love that mechanization.
Even though the movie looks like shit, the gynoids are always the best looking things in a shitty looking motif. So,
but like the visuals do undercut it quite badly. Like the fact that we lost between the shelling sequence in the original and the shelling sequence. What was saying? Do not forget what they took from us. But it's me at the Cracker Barrel holding a tablet that's playing the shelling sequence from 1995. But like this movie has a lot of very interesting things to say about AI and about the future of mechanization. I was thinking specifically about the moment when Haraway, like you said, flips up her regular eyes and then jacks directly into the computer through a face port. I think that shit is really cool. I think that this is, for all that it's not perfect, it is quintessential cyberpunk. Like, if you are interested in cyberpunk, you should take the time to watch this movie because I think it raises a lot of stuff that the genre continues to interrogate, and I think it does it in an interesting way. And I do think that the end of this movie just absolutely is just a banger. But at the same time, like, I feel like we've lost a lot in terms of some of the technologies that we saw in the first movie, specifically around vehicles and about how people are interfacing with vehicles and about, like, the tank. The tank wasn't exceptional to me, but the fact that they worked through the pilot's brain inside the tank and the fact that we had those snipers who were synced directly to the helicopters, like, I was a little more interested in how we literalize using tools and how they change our approach to our world. And that, I think, is more mech than what this movie is doing. So yeah, it's a 4 for me.
We did it.
With that squared away.
Is a gynoid doctor a gynoidcologist?
Oh my God. I love that you said that. That's the best thing you've said. And you've quoted multiple hugely significant philosophers. I do think she's a gynoidcologist.
Geometric.
Plateau never thought about gynoids. I don't know why I was saying his name there.
This whole movie would have been a 10 out of 10 if Togusa, when they got out of there, had turned to Vato and said, "Do you think a gynoid doctor is a gynoidcologist?" Whole movie saved. I would have been like, "Yup."
You don't think that's more of an Ishikawa line?
Yeah, okay. Either
they get
one
back
of them
to Section 9 and Ishikawa's been sitting there thinking about this the entire time.
And he waited because he wanted to see them in person react to it. He couldn't tell them over the comms. Oh, with that beautiful thought in mind, we're going to go ahead and head to the break. And after this, I'm going to traumatize my friends further.
Hey guys, Alice here. Thanks for listening to On the Shoulders of Giants. We're really happy you're here, but if you know anybody who might be interested, we'd love if you share our work with them. If you are enjoying what we're doing, maybe send us a message, or what would really help us out is if you leave a review online. Really, a lot of the algorithms will push people down if they don't have reviews, so it really helps if you just go and write something on the internet. Heck, we might even read one on the podcast if it's really nice and makes our hearts go doki doki. So if you could do that, maybe do it, and thanks again for listening. Now, back to the show.
I need my dear friends to play this game with me. And to play this game, I need you to scroll down on our game document and open the UQuiz link. So our game this time is called Illegal Souls. Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence has a lot to say about dolls and ghosts, but can my friends identify the dolls with ghosts? I have made a 9-question U-quiz which features 50% haunted dolls and 50% dolls that have never been alleged to be haunted.
This is incredible.
And I need you to look at these dolls and identify which ones are haunted.
I have a logistics question. Are we doing this separately or are we doing this collaboratively?
So everyone needs to open it, and then we're gonna go through it. We're gonna go through it one by one. Y'all tell me what your answers are and what your justifications are, and then once you click it and then hit next, it will give you the correct answer. So we can talk through each of these questions, and then we'll know who got it and who didn't.
I got potato salad while I was down there, by the way.
Yeah, I'm glad you're just eating potato salad on mic. I love you so much, my dear friend. Okay, open the U-quiz. We are heading to question 1. Which of these dolls has a ghost? Everyone, so this is a U-quiz. I have made this publicly available. After this episode goes out, all of our wonderful listeners will get to play this and
you made
see
this shit, right?
These dolls. I made this, yeah.
Yeah.
You could have this.
Did you not see the thing that said it was made by us? And also, did you think someone had this quiz ready to go?
It's not a visual podcast.
You have got to put the potato salad down, or we can wait until you finish this.
You cannot just be eating potato salad.
The potato salad.
It is. It's in your voice, my dear.
It super is.
All right, so we have 2 dolls on screen here. Now, the answers are randomized every time you load it, so the order isn't the same. But the first doll on my screen is a Japanese-style doll in a kimono with really long hair, and I have labeled this one Loose Hair, Don't Care. And then the second doll on my screen is a black doll of a young girl who has her hair in twin tails. So I've labeled her twin tails. Alice, which of these do you think has a ghost?
It's got to be the Japanese style doll because it's being kept in a box, and that's what you do with haunted shit. The other one, there's somebody holding it in that photo, and you don't touch haunted shit. So that's my thought.
Interesting justification. Brian, who do you think has the ghost?
I think it's Loose Hair, Don't Care.
You don't always have to pick the other one if somebody picked the other one. You will both get a point if you get it correct.
Okay. I think it's Loose Hair, Don't Care because I'm going to be honest. Even if Twin Tails is haunted, I think that's a very friendly looking doll.
Isn't it cute?
Loose Hair, Don't Care has absolutely nothing to offer me but malevolence.
That is a good point. All right, go ahead and make your selection and hit next.
Oh, thank God I'm not racist. Oh.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, you were both correct, so you both get a point. The name of the Japanese doll is Okiku. So Okiku is currently in the care of a Shinto shrine because allegedly when her young owner died, she had a bob, but her hair has continued growing.
Her hair has ... grown.
Burn that shit.
I'm crying.
Gotta burn that shit.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is when you throw the doll into the fire at your parade.
Oh,
All right,
no.
next question. Which of these dolls has a ghost? So on my screen, the first one is a clown. I've labeled this one a jolly fellow. The second one is this like porcelain doll dressed up like an antebellum dame, which I've labeled plantation baby. All right, Brian, which one of these do you think has a ghost in it?
Oh, man.
Right?
This one is really
This one's
tough.
hard.
I'm pretty sure a jolly fellow was in the movie film Poltergeist, so I'm gonna go with a jolly fellow.
Okay, Alice, what are you thinking?
Feel like clowns have been done wrong, so my gut reaction is to not blame the clown and that's a red herring.
Of course you're a clown defender! Of course you're a clown defender!
Of course she is. She's friends with us.
Oh, that's so better. I was gonna self-destruct on that one. Also, this Gone with the Wind doll is creepy as fuck. That shit's haunted. That's got a Victorian child in it.
And that Victorian child is racist.
All right, make your selections.
No!
So, the Jolly Fellow is actually Marvin the Haunted Doll featured on the TV show My Brother, and Me. This is a rare instance where the person is holding a haunted doll, because Alice, you made a really good point. I will say to muddy the waters, there are several dolls that the pictures are taken from museums, so they are in cases, but they are not haunted. And then there are sometimes people just holding haunted dolls, which seems inadvisable. So, your rule is interesting, but I don't think always correct. But yeah, Marvin was certified haunted for real by an eBay seller, and those are the #1 source for information on haunted dolls.
Red Letter Media, a YouTube channel that does movie reviews, bought a bunch of eBay haunted stuff to do their own investigation, and that's all I can think about when I see this. It's like, guys, don't just buy haunted shit on eBay, okay? Don't do it.
I am covered in chills on this one.
Okay, yeah, this next question.
This one really is a lot.
So on my screen, on the left, we have a doll wearing kind of a long nightgown with luscious hair that I have labeled because it looks like half asleep. 3 a.m. going back for more shredded cheese. And the one on the right just looks like a human toddler frozen in time. There are no joints on this doll. It has hands that are articulated. It has a facial expression that looks sort of real, except it has dead eyes. And I have labeled it, "Why are your hands like that?" Alice, which one of these dolls has a ghost?
I hate both of these. The ultra realistic one gives me an ick that I can't get into right now. But the other one, I've been possessed on the way to the fridge at 3 a.m. to open a bag of cheese and grab a handful and put it in my mouth because you know that shit's gonna hit. I'm going with that one.
All right, you're going for 3 a.m. going back
that
for
shit
more
looks
cheese.
she's slaying in that outfit.
Brian, which one is giving you a haunted?
3 a.m. going back for more... See, it's tough because I feel like why are your hands like that is like, if there's a ghost in there, it hates being in there and it hates you.
That's fair.
This body is a prison.
Bato is yelling at you for putting a ghost in that.
Yeah. Whereas 3 a.m. going back for more shredded cheese, I feel like that is a very comfortable doll. And so a ghost would want to live in that doll.
That's an interesting theory. All right, which one are you thinking?
I think I'm going for 3 a.m. going back for more shredded cheese.
All right, make your selections.
Yeah!
So you were both
I knew
correct?
this was from Ghost Adventures. Let's go!
Yeah!
Let's go!
So Lily is a porcelain doll made with real human hair, currently touted as extremely haunted and owned by legend Zach Bagans of Ghost Adventures.
I
on
need
the
listeners to
Discovery
know that
Channel.
for that entire question, Brian was balling themselves up in a defensive stance because it was so horrifying, and I get it.
Most body language analysis is bullshit, but if you see someone acting like Brian just was, I would say that you can guarantee that they have just viewed a haunted doll. That's what that body language says. All right, question 4. Which of these dolls has a ghost? On my left, I have 2 dolls posed in a karate fight, which I have labeled the Karate Kids. And on the right, I have a doll that looks like it's half plastic, but then has some soft hair, kind of posed with a palm tree, which I have labeled Scenic Greg. Which one of these has a ghost? Brian.
I'm gonna go with Karate Kids because clearly the malformed presence of these demons have warped these children's faces beyond belief. That's my answer.
Very valid. Alice, who are you thinking is haunted here?
Scenic Greg has seen some shit. I love it. If Scenic Greg has a ghost, it is a ghost I want to hang out with. I think it's Scenic Greg.
Scenic Greg in the Dream Blood rotation.
All right, make y'all selections.
Damn it.
This image was taken from the game show After Midnight. It is a quiz game show, and it frequently offers haunted dolls as prizes. The guy I've dubbed Scenic Greg was one of the prizes, so it is haunted.
No.
All right, next one.
No. Oh no. I'm not looking. I'm not looking.
Yeah, if you ever think about dolls, I do not recommend playing this game with us. All right, on the left on my screen, I have a doll I've labeled Oi Mister, You Me Dad, which is a Victorian dressed doll with a very serene, like, if you're thinking of like a haunted porcelain doll, you're thinking of this doll. This is kind of an archetypical haunted looking porcelain doll. On the right, we have a guy who looks like a racist caricature of the Dutch. This is like a weird doll that has like human sculpted hands and an exaggerated man's face in a little green suit. I have labeled that one, well, now I will not do it.
This thing is in the Black Lodge.
Alice, which one of these dolls do you think is haunted?
I'm gonna, I know I just defended clowns, but I need to say something.
I need to say a clown slur.
I get that Victorian dolls are creepy, comma, I like elegant gothic Lolitas, so I just think that this is kind of cute. And so I don't wanna do dirty by her. Also, that is a full man's head and man's hands on a small Peter Pan ass body. It's gotta be that creep. It's gotta be, well, now I will not do that.
All right, Brian, what are you thinking?
I'm going with Oi Mr. You Me Dad because, well, now I will not do it is so unappealing even for ghosts. I would not want to inhabit that doll if I was a ghost.
All right, make your selections.
Yes!
Damn it.
Victorian dolls win again.
Why are Australians like that?
The doll on the right, the man doll, is called Letta, short for Letta Me Out. It's an Australian haunted doll a guy claims to have found in an abandoned house in Wagga Wagga. Maybe the real haunting was the Australian town names we found along the way.
Y'all have got to stop over there.
Niko, you had too much fun making this one.
It was 1 a.m. My cat had just done a crime to me. And I was like, I had this idea for the game, but maybe I'll make it just like right now while I'm thinking about it instead of waking up early. And I'm glad I did because I had an experience last night.
This is as horrifying as the oil spill game. That's all I'm saying.
All right, next question. Which of these dolls has a ghost? On my screen on the left is a Barbie doll in a sort of like a plexiglass case that's dressed up in some fancy robes. I have labeled this one, she's a collectible. On the right is a baby doll in like a little weird like crop top thing in a box that has some French writing on the inside of the box. So I have labeled this one, you can't be saying that French baby. All right, Alice, which one of these do you think is haunted?
I hate the French, and this French baby is unsettling, comma, that Barbie has such energy to it, and it ain't good. It's gotta be that Barbie.
Okay, Brian.
She's not in there for her own good. She's in there for our good. She's a collectible for sure.
It has curtains to pull over it. You don't put that shit on something not haunted.
No.
All right, make your selections.
Hello, Barbie.
All right, you were both correct. Palau Ubin Barbie is a Barbie displayed on a shrine in Singapore said to be haunted and to have spiritual powers, but it does have insane drip.
It really does.
So, okay, the story on this, like, no, granted.
No.
Brian's going to the next one. I'm sorry.
No.
I just want to say on Palau Ubin Barbie, so I was reading it on a paranormal site, which are, of course, like, famous for being, like, respectable sources of information. They claimed that this child was the child of two spies who fell in love, and when they were captured, the child ran for it and fell off a cliff. And then the locals found a Barbie at the bottom of the cliff later, and they think her soul is in it. I don't believe any of that is true, but it is the funniest fucking explanation you can give for why a Barbie has mystical powers.
So insane.
Me walking around finding Barbies on the roadside, like, this is probably haunted by the child of two spies.
All right, our next question, which has harmed Brian psychically. Which of these dolls has a ghost? On the left on my screen is a baby doll with a crack across its eye in a little like white baby getup that says just a little cracked like me. That's what I've labeled that one. And the one on my right is a baby doll that suffered much more crackluer, as they would say in the painting business. It has cracked, and the cracks have gone black with time. I have labeled this one, I Don't Feel So Good, Mr. Stark. Brian, which one of these do you think has a ghost?
The answer is neither now. But it used to be, I Don't Feel So Good, Mr. Stark, before I looked into its eyes and it bore into my soul, and now I'm the one that's haunted.
Okay, so you think it's I Don't Feel So Good, Mr. Stark.
It is,
okay.
yes.
Alice, which one do you think it is?
So I wanted to say it was the one with the cracked eye because that just has the aesthetics of a haunted doll. But the other one looks to be in a plexiglass case with a label on it, and also looks as if somebody was haunted by this and pile drove it into the floor, breaking it into 1,000 pieces, and it's been re-put together to contain the evil spirit that escaped.
By Satan.
So I'm going to say I Don't Feel So Good, Mr. Stark.
All right, make your selections.
No!
Okay, whatever.
Unfortunately, you are wrong. That other doll is normal.
No, it's
That's
not.
normal for dolls.
No, it's not.
That's normal. So the baby with the cracked eye is called Mandy. It's a porcelain baby doll said to follow museum visitors. The museum is in British Columbia. It is either German or English and was made between 1910 and 1920, so it is also probably racist. So that's just a fun fact about Mandy, the porcelain baby doll. All right, our next question.
Okay, I mean...
All right, which of these dolls has a ghost? Left on my screen is more of a human proportion doll. Looks like it's made out of either porcelain or some kind of molded material. It has a super fucked up face and pigtails, and it has blue eyes that stare into your soul and a very red mouth. I have labeled this one, it's normal for a doll to look like this, as we learned from the last question. On the right is a Raggedy Ann doll. Alice, which one of these do you think is haunted?
I know the answer to this one, which is Annabelle was just a Raggedy Ann doll. It's the Raggedy Ann doll, not the movie version that's on the other picture.
Okay, Brian,
What?
do you agree?
No? What?
Okay, so you think it's normal for a doll to look like this?
I think it's Annabelle, yeah.
All right, go ahead and make your selections. The original Annabelle was just a Raggedy Ann doll, but it didn't look very scary. So they made this new fucked up, explicitly scary looking doll for the movies, but that is a prop.
Wait, Annabelle is a real thing?
Annabelle is a real thing, and
Yes.
it was a Raggedy Ann doll.
Annabelle is a real thing. It is housed in the Museum of Paranormal Shit owned by the, what's the name of those people?
Super bad, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
The faking
God, I'm
couple
just-
and their shitty little museum full of fake shit.
Yeah, I can't remember their names, like their last names. The Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren. So Annabelle is a doll that was allegedly involved in a real case investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were the protagonists of The Conjuring.
Yep.
And then part of the Conjuring cinematic universe is just following incidents that they allege to have had, like, the real people. So the Annabelle doll was alleged to be a real haunted doll, but it is just a Raggedy Ann, so it doesn't look scary. So they invented a totally new doll for the movies, because James Wan is a coward. The one on the left was, in fact, the Annabelle prop, and as far as I know, that's normal.
Don't.
Last question.
Why
This
are
is
you
question
like
9.
this?
Which of these dolls has a ghost? Left on my screen is a doll of like a little sailor boy. It looks like it's kind of maybe roughly made. It's holding a dog, we hope? Both the boy and the dog look kind of fucked up. I have labeled this one Twofer. The one on the right is another porcelain doll, which is cracked. It has wild hair. And it clearly has those eyes that roll when you move it. And right now they're rolled down, so she looks like she's just read like a bad tweet. I have labeled this one Girl Same. Brian, which one of these two do you think has a ghost?
I think that Twofer looks a little bit more like a charming little monkey sailor. And I think that Girl Same is haunted as hell and wants to murder me.
That's fair. Alice, what are you thinking?
I gotta think that it's a red herring, and I think it's the sailor boy.
Okay, you think it's Twofer?
Honestly, I think it's the dog that the sailor is holding, but yeah.
Yeah, the sailor's fine. It's the dog that's fucked up.
I think it's Twofer.
All right, make your selections. Okay. It is Robert, the haunted doll, the Twofer, the one I called Twofer. This doll is from Florida, is the first fact you need to know.
Okay,
it's housed in
makes
the
sense.
Key West Museum.
Everything makes sense now.
I had other information on Robert, but I deleted it because I had to download 20 images of Robert to find one that the U-Quiz would take. Every time I tried to upload it, it would give me the crop prompt and I would crop it, and then it would break the image and it would not load. And when I published it, it would not be visible. So I had to download so many pictures of Robert to find one that would be visible. And so I am haunted for real and haunting me specifically. And if you go into our episode chat for this one and click on the message that I spoilered out, I copied the link for the notes document to paste into that channel. And when I hit Control V, it put Robert.
No, Robert is haunting the podcast.
So we may have a fourth co-host, and it's Robert, the haunted doll from Key West.
Honestly, kind of cute little monkey sailor. Do they get a vote on the score?
Well, if you've played along at home, you will get a percentage. This is a graded quiz. This will be on your permanent record. Brian, what was your score?
Cool 44.
Okay. Alice, what was your score?
77.
Alice, you are our haunted doll expert.
C equals degree.
Degree. Brian is passing for his degree in haunted doll, but Alice, she's doing a little more of the coursework.
Thanks. I've been really focused in on dolls since I watched this movie. Been Googling doll museums near me. You know, I'm getting into it.
Yeah. So if you, as we said, like, you know, you weep for the bird that can cry, you don't weep for the fish. If you have a doll and it cannot speak, but it has an energy, just consider there may be an illegal ghost inside it. It may be whispering to it to kill you. So just like watch out for that.
Two things. Number one,
yes.
One of the thrift stores I go to has had a Japanese geisha doll that I've thought about buying, and I think I'm going right after this recording to buy it and add it to my collection, hoping it's haunted.
When are we getting the haunted doll endorsement? We are moving units.
Number two, you can check how many people have taken a U-Quiz quiz. 4 people have taken this. 2 people who are not us.
Robert took it. No, Robert took one of them.
Robert
The 4 members of OSG have taken this. You can too.
God, I hate looking at these images of Togusa and Bato now, especially after all that shit.
Because you're like, oh, these are haunted for sure.
I usually
dude.
take screenshots after, like, when I'm making the webpage, but that happened in real time, and I was like, I gotta take a picture. I was like, Tricky, I gotta take a picture.
This time, we do have a flash transmission coming in, but it is a flash transmission that was delivered via Skeet, which is the new style of flash transmission. You're going to be hearing about skeeting on your home electronic devices a lot, I think.
This was skeeted all over our feed.
I will say, just as a note before we get into this, obviously with all of the stupid fucking horseshit that's happening, we are trying to abandon Twitter permanently. Obviously, co-host was shot dead in the street.
Murdered. Which
we hate. And fucking Meta has gone insane right-wing, so obviously, like, we're not as interested in engaging with Instagram, unfortunately, because we did get a fair amount of traffic from that, but, like, we're not really interested in doing that, and obviously we never fucked with Threads, but because the social media landscape is hellish, right now, I think if you want to get updates from OSG Pod and you want to reach out to us and tell us things other than by leaving a 5-star review or sending us an email, you can skeet on us.
Skeet on us. Yeah, pretty soon here, I'll make some posts to like give people time if they wanted to find us on other platforms. Or the other platform, because honestly, at this point, if you want to get a hold of us other than the email and the podcast, I think Blue Sky might actually be the only way to do it going forward.
And questions.
Hey, did y'all hear that everything sucks?
Yeah, questions at osgpod.com. And actually, sorry, we all are lying because this flash transmission is actually a YouTube comment.
Well, yeah, we're still on YouTube for now, and actually, if we do short videos in the future, because TikTok was the other one I didn't mention. Hey, we all saw that fucking stunt for Trump with TikTok, so we're not as interested.
We're not doing that either. Nope.
Yeah. So if we make short videos, you are going to find them on them YouTube shorts. I know everyone's telling you to get off them YouTube shorts, but you need to get on our YouTube shorts.
Get on our YouTube shorts. Also, I don't mention this. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this actually on the pod formally, but if you ever want to know what we are going to cover next, the social media sorority forecasts are like the only place we actually make that information public. So
yeah, other than at the end of the episodes. Yeah. But yeah, you can get a farther idea out. So if you want to write us a letter about a specific piece of media, check the sorority forecasts on social media, and you can see what we're going to be talking about coming up. But yeah, Brian, this was a YouTube comment. Would you like to read it out for us?
I'll read it out for us. This comes from Chris D.
Hi,
Gregorio.
Shout out to our Italian-American listeners.
Shout out to Tony Soprano, 6724. I found Friends at the Table this is obviously on our counterweight episode. I found Friends at the Table kind of at random, having never listened to an actual play podcast before, and it kept me company through a lot of early morning shifts. It got me interested in TTRPGs again, which has become one of my absolute favorite hobbies. With the magnitude of how long it is, it's hard to get anyone else to listen to it, so it was really, really lovely to hear someone else discuss one of my favorite podcasts. Yeah, the best way to get someone else to listen to Friends at the Table is to start a podcast with them and then schedule an episode about Friends at the Table.
Yeah, you have to do it by coercion. I will say, so we're planning to cover Twilight Mirage this year, obviously towards the end of the year. Brian has listened to Twilight Mirage. I skipped Twilight Mirage. It is the longest season, I think, in the Divine Cycle.
Palisade gave it a run for its money, but that might still be true.
Yeah, I mean, Palisade also had like the Road to Palisade, which was kind of, but Twilight Mirage was really long. I avoided listening to it. I legally have to now. Me and Alice are in the same boat. We legally must listen to this season of Friends at the Table. I am excited, though, because it's funny. Like, the idea of doing a podcast about a podcast feels kind of stupid.
Nope.
But also, Friends at the Table is really long. It is really, like, it can be hard to sum up and talk about. And, like, but I think it is really cool to talk about as, like, one text as opposed to something episodic or even something, like, phenomenological. Like, it was really cool to just, like, cover the whole season and talk about the story beats and
one
about,
thing
like,
that could be
liked,
totally. One thing that could be also useful about doing those episodes, too, is they do kind of make a more concise case for, like, what the overall plot beats are. And like, while we spoiled the plot technically, like, there's a lot of stuff that we are not going to get into, especially with Twilight Mirage, which is, like I said, is twice as long as the season we've already covered.
I also think of it as like look, Price of Smiles didn't need 3 episodes, but talking about like those podcasts, and I'm saying this as a person who, when you guys introduced the idea of let's cover another podcast actual play, I was like, that's fucking stupid. There's like 5,000 anime we can cover before then, which is the natural reaction. But after listening to it,
everyone
I see
thinks
it as like in the same way we covered Thaliarchus's book,
Cosmic Warlord Kinbright.
Yeah.
It's like
both of which are also anime, to be clear.
Like, this is a piece of media made in a medium that is known to the creators. And so Austin Walker making a podcast is a way for him to tell his story. So I'm just getting the story. It's just in a weird medium. And honestly, from what I've read about Twilight Mirage, because I want to listen to it closer to when we actually do our thing for it, is this is more of like a curated experience. And I'm kind of excited to discuss it as a whole and not in a like beat by beat. I am worried that nothing will capture my heart as much as Arya Joy, though.
Yeah, that is true. Arya Joy is kind of like Alice Catnip.
Yeah, unfortunately, Twilight Mirage. Where
I think Ali Akapour literally plays a cat girl in Twilight Mirage, so
yes,
she does. She's your number one.
And unfortunately, I did realize this just now, having this thought because you brought that up. But in the way that Counterweight is the Yuri season, Twilight Mirage is the Yaoi season. So
Well,
I am going to be the one.
We have been saying we have been saying that we need more yaoi.
We need more yaoi.
Fujoshis are thirsty.
We're hitting. Yeah, I was about to say, we're in our big mech that we use to podcast, and we're hitting the big button that says Fujo mode.
Yeah.
And we're getting there.
The Fujo circuit
twin
or whatever.
Braids and giant bifocals, and is holding their handwritten script of their ship in their arms tightly.
And their hands have gotten way bigger.
Yaoi hands is contagious.
Mech goes into yaoi mode and his hands double in size.
Oh my god. Well, I'm glad and for those of you who don't know, so we do use the YouTube feature that automatically makes a YouTube video whenever we make an upload. For like the first 15 videos of our podcast, I made those myself. That's why they have kind of like a cute aesthetic. But rendering video of a podcast, it takes like no time at all to set up and then like a million years to render. So I decided to let Google do that for me. I'm sorry to the friends and fans I've betrayed. But while it doesn't have like beautiful visuals or anything, it has the whole episode on YouTube. So it's something that like if you have a YouTube subscription for any reason, so you can listen to things without watching the video, you're not missing anything. You can listen to the episodes there if you're more likely to use YouTube than a podcast thing. And I think like YouTube can be a really easy way to share things with people who maybe don't listen to podcasts. Because I know like when I got into podcasting very early, so I was like downloading MP3s before there was like an Apple podcast app, and then once there was an app, I was using that.
I don't know.
Listen, we all listened to Night Vale in like 2010, right?
No.
Anyway.
Oh, I was listening to Comedy Bang
I think
Bang,
if you're not, yeah, Alice is an old head in a different way. I think if people aren't already into podcasts, it can seem kind of inaccessible. You got to get a different thing. You got to search for what you want to find. You got to find people who you can tolerate and you can tell apart. Like. Yeah, I don't know. So if you have a friend who is interested in this podcast but is not like a podcast person, the YouTube could be a good way to be like, hey, I know you like Ghost in the Shell.
That we're imminently fucking tolerable, and
we're so tolerable.
We're so tolerable. While we're doing all this, while we're having this whole conversation, should we just say that we're doing Discord?
Yeah, so our Discord is live. Go check it out. We're kind of obviously anticipating a smaller community to start, so we're doing a little bit more like limited channels, limited stuff. But like if you want to talk about the latest episode, if you want to have reactions, if you want to group up with people and make a game, if you want to do a watch along in anticipation of an episode, like if you've ever been in a Discord community, you can do that now. I was a little worried about it. I will say I'm the kind of person who joins like a community Discord and is like, wow, this seems really cool, but also there's 5 million people and they're all having different conversations. And then I mute it and then I never go back. I have a folder that's just community Discords that I've muted but don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Don't be like me. Join our Discord and participate.
Interact with us. It's particularly Alice.
Hello. I deeply, deeply have a parasocial relationship with our fans. I do feel like this is going to be 10 people and us, and that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be us, Ghost, the Haunted Doll. Robert will now be a part of this podcast. Our Lithuanian fan who will never post but will be in there strong, forever, silent.
Yeah, but with that, I think sorry, I had other tabs open for the ghost thing, and I had to not the ghost thing, the haunted dolls, different, legally distinct from Ghost Our Scribe, as the haunted doll that now lives with us in the mech.
Ghost is also haunting a podcast.
But with that said, that has been this episode of On the Shoulders of Giants, where we discuss Ghost in the Shell 2: Innocence. Any parting thoughts, you two?
The birds are high in the sky, and the fish are deep in the water.
I love women, and I missed them in this film.
Do you ever miss women?
Every day.
Big me mood.
Every day I miss women.
And I will say, everyone's always asking, are the birds back? But nobody's asking, how are the birds? And most importantly, how are the fish?
The fish can't tell us because they have no voice.
Whoa.
They have no voice. I think scientists, please give fish voices. Anyway, thanks for listening. Pilots, remember you can reach out for advice from the team at our email, questions@osgpod.com. As Alice mentioned earlier, it is the last unproblematic social media format. And non-pilots can send general questions or feedback to the same address. You can also catch up with us on social media. The links will be in the description for updates and more. And you'll also find a link there to the show Discord. Come hang out. Make sure to check back in 2 weeks when we'll be discussing the Mech TTRPG Lancer with the scribe of the show, Ghost. Ghost will no longer just be writing for us. They will be speaking for us. And that's powerful. Until then, goodbye. I love you.
There's a whisper in my ghost telling me that I love you.
Every time you log on to the net, I'll be there by your side.
Shit posting.
That is true, especially if you're on Blue
right
Sky.
next to you.
By that, I mean I'm watching every single one of you post about your Eki manga.
Eki? All right, we gotta stop.
Wait, is it Ecchi? What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Oh.
Did you just ask me if I'm sure? Of course I'm sure.
I don't trust you.